Let's freaking go! We have got a lovely live stream tonight. It's our first live stream. I say first. That's not first. It's our first live stream since last Wednesday night. We are here on a glorious Tuesday night, and we have a lot to get to involving John Emery making the decision to come back to LSU for a fifth season. We also have to get to tonight the story involving Lance Hurd and DASHAWN WOMACK. They are confirmed 5 stars on 3, but for 247 Sports, only Lance Hurd is the lone 5 stars. We say hi to Rob, we say hi to Daniel. And look, for me, I look at LSU from top to bottom. I look at this situation where you see the transfer portal, you see guys coming in, you see guys really excited to start next year for LSU with Chestnut. Obviously, J.K. Johnson, those guys are already enrolled, ready to go. Denver Harris also involved in the early enrollment here. So we're going to talk about every single one of those guys. If I truly do believe there are a ton of starters of that group, I really do think so. I think this team, especially in the secondary, is going to be very transfer heavy. We say hi to Goose. We say hi to Jesse. It is a great day to be a Tiger. We're also going to take a few questions here on Walker Howard. I know a lot of you still feel some type of way about his decision to transfer. Obviously, that news broke last Wednesday. We talked a lot about it then. We have a free PHL podcast on all podcast services if you want to check it out. And look, I've got to be quite honest with you. It is looking more and more likely he is going to go to an SEC school. So there very well could be a world in which LSU will be playing Walker Howard for a different SEC team, right? And I know that is going to stick in a lot of your psyches for quite some time. And I totally get it, right? So Walker Howard is gone, and his statement really left no, openness about a possible return. He is in the portal, and he is likely to go. I've seen a few crystal balls go Ole Miss's way. Obviously, TCU is still going to be somebody that will be very interested in Walker Howard's services. So yeah, I am if he goes to TCU, I wish him nothing but the best. If he stays in the SEC, he might turn out to be great. We'll see. I still wish him the best, except of course when we play him, if he does decide to go. All right. We say hi to Jared. We say hi to TOV. Nurse Court. I've had some great conversations with her this week. Good, we'll play him and he will school us. That's not a good mentality to have. Aside Jacob, what's up? What's up, Mick? Good to see you. And look, if he does go elsewhere, good for him. But I'm very happy with our quarterback room right now. I'm also very happy about Garrett Nussmeier. I have had a lot of evil comments come my way about me being a JD homer. I've also been called a Garrett Nussmeier homer. Every time I do a film study on either one of them, those comments tend to fly in. And I honestly thought, with the way I actually phrased some of the things I said about Garrett Nussmeier at the end, I thought I was going to get a lot of people calling me a Nuss homer. But I've gotten more Jaden homer comments, which is pretty fascinating. Okay, everybody, welcome Cinco to the channel. We'll go on ahead and answer his question. Everybody make Cinco feel welcome here in the PHL community. My starting 3 wide receivers this year. So obviously, I think Malik is a clear-cut number 1 guy, and then Brian Thomas Jr. will be your number 2. It's just going to be interesting what they want to do formationally with those 2 players in particular. Does Malik play a little bit more of the slot? Should be very interesting. The number 3 probably will be Kyron Lacy to start things out. I think Kyron Lacy will stay at LSU, but there are a lot of other options there as well for LSU to take a look at, including someone like a Shelton Sampson, who I'm really high on coming in, and of course, the other three that are coming in this recruiting class as well. So those guys are great, but don't forget about some of the returnees who just haven't really played a whole lot up to this point, right? You take a look at someone like Landon Ibieta, you take someone like Chris Hilton. A lot of those reasons for them not playing is injury, but can those guys be big time Division One players? We shall see what happens there. But welcome to the channel, Cinco. Hope you subscribe, ring the bell. We hope to see you around more often. I'm just being honest. We're also sure Walker Howard was transcendent. Trevor Lawrence was transcendent. You couldn't keep him off the field. Can we say the same for Walker Howard? And that's how I feel as well, right? You know, I never I might have said this, getting carried away at some point. You'd have to go listen to every single one of my live streams. But I honestly thought Walker Howard was special. I still think he is a special talent at quarterback. I do. But I'm not sure if I ever called him transcendent, right? I, over the last couple of years, have given transcendent grades for two players, right? Emery Jones and Harold Perkins. Those were the only two I felt that way about since the start of this channel, when we really started to do more recruiting stuff and people starting to, you know, come to LSU, right? Obviously, I felt that way about Derek Stingley. I don't think anyone else felt differently about him coming in. Um, but yes, those two. Up to this point, and I'm actually doing this right now for our Patreons. You know this. I shared something a little bit earlier in our Patreon private group. Are there any sleepers in the 2023 class? And I think Whit Weeks is a guy that, you could still call a sleeper, but he has shot up the recruiting boards since he's committed to LSU. But really, for this incoming class, I did not give, up to this point, anybody a transcendent grade. Now, that takes a lot. I want to make sure a gazillion percent when I watch your high school film that I feel you are going to be a top 3 round draft pick. You're going to be an all SEC guy. You're a guy that will be an elite player in year 1 or year 2. And look, for me, I Lance Hurd obviously is really high on my board. Obviously, Shelton Sampson. Those are my top 2 players LSU brought in. And then after that, it gets very interesting. I have a few different players I've swapped out at that number 3 spot. But for right now, Lance Hurd and Shelton Sampson are 1 and 2 in this class 4B. Let's go to Rick right here. Who's your pick for early enrollee who has the biggest impact this year? It's a very good question. I think, Rick, the clear answer for me is Denver Harris. I really do think Denver Harris is good. I don't just think he's good. I think he's very good. And I think he's going to be a starter for LSU next season. I like him a little better than the other corners, even though they have played more. Obviously, Chestnut has, played a lot. J.K. Johnson's really fired up to be reunited with his high school coach. And he has got not good, but great speed. He's got the type of speed you look for out of a nickel, out of a guy that, could match up with anybody. But I actually do believe the hype in Denver Harris. He actually had a really high grade coming out for me. Every year I look at the 5 stars. I try my best to pick which ones are truly great. And something I saw very interesting today on the recruiting rankings is this whole time I thought the Nico kid that went to Tennessee was the best quarterback in this class. And believe it or not, he actually jumped Arch Manning today. I have always felt that way about that kid. I do think he is really, really, really good. And I had a higher grade on him than Malachi Nelson. And my number 2 guy has actually been Dante Moore, who was rumored to LSU for a long time. And he's, gone everywhere. So those are actually my top 2 guys. And look, I don't all the time agree with the recruiting rankings. So they did get Denver Harris right. I do think he's a 5-star talent. It's just, can everything else that comes with being, a big-time college football player come along for him? And obviously that is more referring to off-field stuff. Your best ability is availability. And if you're not available, you serve no purpose for anybody, really. So if Denver Harris is healthy, he's going to be a really solid at least Mekhi Gardner level player, and that's what we're looking for right now. The most important thing is just finding people that you can trust to go out there and give you a start versus an SEC opponent. Now, how good will Denver Harris be? I don't know, but consider me a fan, a big time fan. So we'll see. It's been too long. Good to see you, LA Mom. I know I had a bunch of text over the weekends. Yes, we still had the hour-long film studies, but the live streams are where it's at, where we get to hang out as one big old PHL group, PHL family. And yeah, I'm super excited to be back in the studio, live and in color. Let's go. And there's Tyler Rico. Good to see you. John Emery coming back. Good to see you as well, Carvis. Carvis is back. And our poll question tonight is, who will lead LSU in rushing next year? A lot of you are predicting Josh Williams. I actually should have rephrased this question. Which running back will lead LSU in rushing next year? Obviously, Jaden Daniels would be the favorite to lead LSU in rushing. Now, obviously, the Jaden Daniels discourse is going to continue all offseason. I am going to be honest, though, and I've gotten a few texts today about, Walker Howard going to Ole Miss, Walker Howard going to Florida. Will other players follow Walker Howard wherever he goes? And for me, I just think we need to just calm down a little bit on this story. Is he gone? Yes. Did we do a lot of Walker Howard content on this channel in particular? Yes. Have a few of you texted me and DM'd me, hey, didn't you say Walker Howard is going to win a national championship at LSU? Yeah, that was my grade coming out. I honestly thought he was really good. He was my number 2 quarterback. The only guy would have taken over Walker Howard was Kate Klubnik. That's the only one. And I do think he's really good. But I've got to be honest, man. Garrett Nussmeier on tape just got a lot better this year. He really did. And whether or not you like Jaden, that's up to you. He does miss a lot of throws. I'd be the first to tell you that. You could still miss throws and still be a very good quarterback. And Jaden is a very good quarterback. Now, I did see something interesting today on 247 Sports. Jaden was actually rated a top 10 quarterback in all of college football. In fact, I think he was the highest rated SEC quarterback, or according to 1247 Writer, and it's just 1247 Writer. But I thought this was interesting that let me get out of this. And yeah, Jaden Daniels was, according to 247 Sports, is their number 1 quarterback returning in the SEC next year. And as much as I love Jaden, as much as I get called a Jaden Daniels fanboy, I would not have Jaden Daniels as the number 1 quarterback in the SEC. I think that is inaccurate. I think it's KJ Jefferson. I really do. Howard might be on a JT Daniels path. Yeah, I mean, look, and this is something to keep in mind as well. Most of the quarterbacks don't pan out, right? Most of them don't. And in fact, a lot of quarterbacks don't become good until they actually do transfer. And I say this all the time about the quarterback position in particular. It is as much mental as it is physical. If it was all physical, Peyton Manning, you guys know I'm a huge Peyton Manning fan, and Drew Brees. If it was all physical, those guys don't have a top 50 arm in the history of the NFL. You would never have said either one of them had a top 5 arm in the NFL. It's mental, right? And when you transfer, it's a team basically telling you, hey, you're not the starter here. We don't think you're good enough to be the starter here. You could be the starter eventually, but the guy we have, we think is better than you. And when you transfer, that is what you're essentially telling yourself, because if you were the guy, you would stay. Now, obviously, there's cases like Caleb Williams where he is the guy and he's just following his coach. But, a lot of quarterbacks maybe would have never gotten as good as they are now unless they do transfer. And we saw this objectively happen with a lot of quarterbacks this past year, right? Michael Penix and Bo Nix were fine quarterbacks at Indiana and Auburn, but They go to other schools and they start getting Heisman love. And it's because you're getting older, right? The human brain does not stop, growing and evolving. I think scientists say until you're 25 years of age. So this mental sport, while you're doing all this schoolwork, while you're, processing all the emotions of being a college student, learning playbooks, learning systems, developing chemistry, the older you are, the better. And I think LSU I think that played a huge role for Jaden Daniels. And I do think quarterbacks, especially ones that really do want to play early, you're going to start seeing more quarterbacks that might be higher rated that go to situations where they could play right away. And it's a very interesting thing. Let's go to Cinco here. There he is. He switches the photo up again. Look, gotta love it. Do I think Garrett Nussmeier leaves? No, I don't think Garrett Nussmeier is leaving. I think he's going to stay. Um, for me, the way I understand it and the way this has been explained to me is Garrett Nussmeier really likes LSU. He really likes Baton Rouge. He just likes being there. I think that does help out because if you enjoy where you are, it does make things a little bit easier. Once again, his family slobbered, not smooth at all. Ha, ha, ha. His mother's side of his family is from Lake Charles, Louisiana. And, he grew up loving the SEC. That's where his dad spent a lot of time coaching. So, I think Nuss is staying. And I also think Nuss feels he can beat Jaden out this offseason. And it's doable. It's doable. In fact, it was doable last offseason. And I don't think Brian Kelly was just holding on to the idea of Garrett Nussmeier being the guy just for the sake of trying to fool Florida State. I do think it was close, right? Now, I had heard, just leading up that Jaden was going to be the guy. I think most people thought that. But I think a lot of it was Garrett Nussmeier making it close with him, not just spring game, but some of the practices he had, he was just balling out of control. So, I give Garrett Nussmeier a lot of credit. I give Jaden a lot of credit as well. As to the way it's been explained to me is they do enjoy being around each other. They do enjoy competing against one another, and I also think that the team likes being around both of them. They're very affable guys, right? Not every LSU quarterback was like that. And that's obviously a really good thing. Obviously, Joe Burrow had that as well. So it's very interesting. Let's go to Rob here. We didn't think Walker would leave either, and he loved LSU. Yeah, but Walker was the number 3 guy, and I think that is a big reason why he left. I don't think, I let me put it this way. I think it was more plausible that he left not only because he was a number 3 guy, but the number 2 guy had started playing so well, right? If the number 2 guy starts playing very, very, very well, then one would think the number 2 guy would take over for the number 1 guy. And if you go in as the number 3 guy next year, when are you ever going to play? Right? The Brock Purdy thing is rare. It never happens, right? Where the 3rd string guy comes in. Now, in a perfect world, everybody would have a Cardale Jones that can come off the bench and win you a national championship, or a Brock Purdy at the number 3 spot. But, college kids want to go play. And I also think Walker Howard saw other elite quarterbacks and their situations, and he saw how quickly those guys were getting to play. And, you go to all these camps with all these other quarterbacks. You think you're the best. You should think that if you're a top 100 quarterback. And you see all these other quarterbacks getting a chance to play right away, and you're just stuck sitting in the 3 hole. It's tough. It's really, really, really tough. Jared, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. You get to pick the next topic. Go right on ahead. Well, no, I think JD5 will be the guy. And, the coaches said it was close, right? If it was not close, then Jaden would have been, named the starter. Now, once again, Jaden did have better practices. Nuss, in some situations, did turn the football over in those practices, and you saw it this year during the actual season. And it's got to be really hard for Garrett to supplant Jaden Daniels in this, but let's not act like he didn't play better towards the end of the year. So Jaden definitely is clear cut QB1. In a way, yeah, I guess so. But clear cut, I would say so. I would say so. I would say it's going to take a lot for Jaden Daniels to not be the guy going into next year. And something else I do think plays a factor in this is Jaden did play very well versus Florida State last year. That was one of his better games with a very shaky supporting cast situation up front. And our running backs weren't playing as well as they did until, as the season progressed, really that Mississippi State game. So yeah, I mean, I would say, I would say Jaden is a starter. Hendon Hooker is a perfect example of older QB transferring and becoming good in a new system. There's no reason to name a starter at that point. No, I agreed in the week leading up to the game, but there wasn't a clearer separation between the two of them before that, which is my point, right? I do think Garrett made it close. I do. I felt as if Jaden was always going to be the guy, though, in the first game versus Florida State. But I think we can all agree that Garrett made LSU have to think about some things going into this next year, which is why partially they played him in the third series of the game versus Purdue. So, yeah. Skipper says, looking at the film, the whole offense seemed to pick up confidence when Nuss came in the game. I think it's tough to, objectively point out like confidence. Like did the team look a little bit more excited when Nuss came in? It is a different situation when he's in at quarterback, right? But for me, I do think the team loves playing for Jaden Daniels. And I'm going to tell you this, yeah, I would highly recommend you go listen to the interview that Slade Roy gave us a few months ago. When he paraphrasing here, I asked him about Jaden versus Mississippi State, and Slade Roy pointed out whenever you see someone have a gash on the side of his head leading you to victory, that does something to a locker room. That does something to the rest of the team. So I think the team really likes being around Jaden, right? And all the intangible stuff, he just kills. So it's very interesting. Here's Creek. Walker Howard was a true 5-star guy. Arch Manning's last name makes him a 5-star. JD has mobility, but in order to be great teams, you have to be able to make all the throws. Nuss can, JD no. So what's interesting is Walker Howard wasn't a 5-star. I think, the 247 composite, his final ranking was like in the top 50, but it wasn't a 5-star. Let me see. I'm interested to see what his final ranking was on the On3 composite. Let's see. So this is interesting. So Rivals had him as a 5-star, but his final rankings here, according to this, was still a top 100 recruit on all services, but as you see here, 91, 99, 42, 20. And Jaden Daniels was actually a higher rated recruit than Walker Howard coming out. Yeah. Yeah, I think BK loves him some Jaden. And I would too, man. Look, coaches love a few things. Number one, don't turn the football over. Jaden's the best at that. Turnover worthy play percentage, he was objectively the best at that this year. And number two, um, they love guys that win games. And Jaden won a lot of games this year. Now, was the winning of the games because of him? In some areas, yeah. I mean, Florida, Ole Miss, Alabama. Was he winning of the games because of other factors defensively? Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Um, That's a good question here from Cody L. Good to see you again, man. Super dad. Can I see Lance Hurd opposite verse game one? So I'll love me some Lance Hurd. Obviously, he spent time with PHL just a few weeks ago. Gave us a really good interview. I highly recommend you go check it out. I've gotten a lot of text and messages from people saying that they were really excited to see that side of him, which is always a good thing when you hear when you hear that from an interview. And yeah, what's interesting is the Trey Holly one re-recorded is just as good, if not better. It's also longer. It's just I can't fix the audio on it. I'm going to keep trying, but our Trey Holly interview was just as good, if not better. He shared some very interesting things about Arch Manning and a few other things. But, as far as Lance Hurd starting opposite, Jared Verse, I could see it. I can. I do think Lance is really good. Coming out, like, even before Lance Hurd made the jump, I remember sharing with Blake privately that I did think Lance Hurd was a better prospect than Will Campbell. And you guys know I loved Will Campbell coming out. So just based on, and this was his junior tape at the time, I had Emery Jones 1, Lance Hurd 2, Will Campbell 3. And they were all, obviously elite players. And, Lance is very interesting because and Pierce knows this because Pierce watched the interview as it happened. Um, Actually, no, he was a little bit later, but Pierce was with us all day hanging around with Lance Hurd, and he was doing one-on-one conversations with anyone that would go up to him. It was really cool. Cool PHL event. That's why you got to come out. Whenever we do something, it's going to be fun. I promise you. And I did get an invite to go to Orlando. I don't know if we're going just yet, so we'll see. Lance has such a unique shape. He does not look like most offensive tackles, and he is an athletic marvel if you stand next to him. He is not built like an offensive tackle, though. He is lean. He reminds me a little bit more of an NBA player than an NFL player. Athletically, he is so gifted. It's just going to be interesting, when he gets to LSU. One thing that people don't give Will Campbell and Mason Smith in particular, and Emery Jones, what they don't give those three players in particular enough credit for is they radically changed their bodies when before they played. So Mason Smith, I believe, became a vegan or pescatarian, or he did something to change his diet before he actually played at LSU. Will Campbell got a little bigger and he got even more athletic than he already was. And then, obviously Emery Jones, he was playing guard in the fall practices, and he goes from guard in fall practice to we need you to start at right tackle. And not only start at right tackle, Emery Jones kind of saved the season, right? Because the Bradford situation at right tackle wasn't really working out as well as if he would have played guard. They only had the injury leading into the game to Bradford, And it was coming down to like Marcus Dumerville, who's now at Maryland, and a few other options at right tackle, putting Frazier there. But instead, they decided to roll with Emery Jones and saying, look, versus this 3-3-5 stack, we not only need you to play, we need you to play a position you weren't even practicing at during the fall. And that lets you know Emery Jones is really special. Now, what I highly recommend you do is go to the Jaden Daniels film study. And I point out a few specific things I would like to see Emery Jones work on to take it to the next level. But I do think he is better served at guard. And if we can move him to guard and someone else play right tackle, our offensive line is going to go to another level, because I think Emery Jones, when he moves to guard, I get chills thinking about it. I think he is going to be so freaking good. And that's the scary thing about it, is like he was so good this year and he was at a position, and he was a later enrollee. And, this is hard. You were a left tackle in high school playing at right guard, and now we need you to start a right tackle. Yeah, so he is a starting SEC right tackle, but if he moves to guard, you'll start seeing him, obviously guards don't get selected in the first round of the NFL draft anymore, but you'll start seeing him really start to shoot up boards. So I'm really freaking excited about that. What's up, Danny girl? Good to see you. James, man, dude, I people forget that play. Was that not just insane? Insane, man. An open field tackle against Xavier Thomas. That was crazy. That was freaking crazy. He's special, man. He's a very, very, very special football player. Uh, the entire offensive line, great this year. Um, FACP, good to see you, man. Yeah, they were good. They were good. I thought Brad did a fine job with this group. Could they be better? Um, yes, there were some games where they were not good. Tennessee is one of them. Obviously, Florida State, but that really doesn't count because that was not our offensive line. Um, for the rest of the season. So yeah, I think there were some moments though, like obviously the Alabama game was phenomenal for them. Uh, but there were some moments where they could have been a lot better, and some of that also FACP to the opposite of that is some of that's on Jaden as well. Um, sacks are as much a quarterback stat as it is an offensive line stat, and we took a lot of them this year. We took a record amount, so sometimes you just got to let that thing rip. And and also play calling, guys getting open. There's so many different factors that go into it, but for the most part, FACP, when you look at stats like line yards and stuff rate, LSU was really good this year. So we got some Rohan Davey fans in here. Ooh, this is crazy. JD5 just had the second best QB season of any other QB in LSU in history, and that includes my personal favorite, Rohan Davey. People want JD5 replaced. Okay, so second best season. That's a good that's a really, really good debate. Let's see. We'll go to Carver's super chat. Let me think about that for a second. You know, man, you guys know I'm a big J Russ guy. J Russ was so freaking good. In both seasons he actually started. That final year was so freaking good. Obviously Flynn was phenomenal. And those Met years were good as well. But the second best season, I don't know. You know what I'm gonna do? I kind of want to just do a video on that. Let's see. I'm gonna write that down. The Jaden second best season on Joe. Writing that down. I'll do a deep dive on that. Type Y for yes, type in for no if you would like for me to do a deep dive on that. Because he very well could have. It was a very solid season. Yeah, I think man, Terrace that final year was so good. The Notre Dame game to cap it off, kid was phenomenal. Let's go to Carver's super chat here. Thank you so much. Yes. Rob says no, he wouldn't be interested in that kind of video. Yes, man. Here's my one thing. Here's my one thing I'll say about Jamarcus. Right, I know, like I was younger, and that was a little bit of my like adolescence. So I was like in high school watching that stuff. The one thing I like about Jamarcus Russell is he won LSU a crap ton of games in crunch time. What was it? He had 8. I'd have to look this up again. He had 8 fourth quarter comeback victories, which is absurd. And he was the first LSU quarterback to have back-to-back 10-win seasons. So he won a lot of games. And obviously his receivers were great. He had just freaking phenomenal receivers. So yeah, I'd have to go look at, like, put the numbers right next to each other. But yeah, I mean, J. Russ was that dude. And Flynn obviously was great. 2 300-yard games. Obviously, the Auburn game is one of the best, LSU quarterback performances ever. So, yeah. Now, I want to go to Carvis's super chat here. Campbell, Dellinger, Turner, Jones, and Hurd. Okay. So let's have a conversation about the starting LSU offensive line. I know Lance Hurd has said what he has said. I had some great conversations with him off mic, regarding, playing year one. I don't think I know he wants to play left tackle. I don't think he's going to take it from Will Campbell. But what I will also say is this, especially with the quarterback like Jaden at the helm, there have been studies done on this in the NFL because, people always talk about left tackle being the blind side, right? There's a whole movie empire built off of the blind side. Well, right tackle is just as important, right? It's the symmetrical, same position on the other side of the field, right? And it'd be a little bit different if there was like a boundary tackle and a field tackle, but there's not. There's a left tackle and a right tackle. So let's just say Lance Hurd starts at right tackle. That's not, a downgrade, if you will. It probably is if your quarterback is purely a pocket quarterback, but you need a great right tackle as well. So, I think this could be your starting tackle duo, but obviously it's going to start off with Campbell and Jones. What we do know is 2 of these players are a gazillion % going to be starters next year. Will Campbell will be one of them, and Emery Jones will be the other, right? Will they line up at those positions? Well, will for sure be the starting left tackle. The other 3 are still up for grabs, right? Not getting Anthony Bradford back is huge because he's a solid player. I don't think anybody would, look at him like La'el Collins, but he's a really good player. So you lose him. Now, the next question would be, how did Garrett Dellinger look this season? There were some good moments and some bad moments. I think he's a fine player. How did Charles Turner look this season? Once again, Charles Turner is not a huge dude. Now, he is huge probably compared to you, me, and a lot of other people, but he's not huge. There were times he could get overpowered, but this was a guy who was told, hey, you're not the starter. We're going to roll with someone else who's rarely played the position. And lo and behold, they go to Charles Turner immediately. and he played well the rest of the year. So, as of right now, if there was a game to be played tomorrow, Will Campbell and Emery Jones would be your left tackle and right tackle. Um, Frazier would be your right guard. Dellinger would be your left guard. And Charles Turner will be your starter at center. Okay. Oh, we got a Burt Jones reference. Of course, the great John Sibley Butler says that. I mean, modern era and vintage guys are completely different, right? That's why I don't do like I'm not going to compare Burt Jones to someone modern era. Was Burt Jones better than Jaden Daniels? I'd have to go look at the numbers, right? Obviously, Wyatt Tittle's a legend. Matt Flynn, uh, I don't think Matt Flynn's better than Jay Russ. I don't. You can make a case, his individual season what was better, but yeah, let's see. But Flynn is up there for sure. I'm for Rustin, live in Houston. Martinez needs more sample size. I think Martinez can beat him out. I do. Yeah, and ironically, I'm a Bird fan. I actually have a autographed Burt Jones helmet back here. Um, yeah, so we have a very strong mutual friend, ironically. Um, so yeah, I love me some Burt Jones. I've interviewed him before. I kind of want to see if he'd want to jump on PHL. We'll see. Now, I do go to Danny Girl. You guys know she is an expert at the center position. She has been, when I started the channel, she was talking about Liam Shanahan and why we need an upgrade there. Turner had his moments, agreed, but for me, it was miles better than Liam. Huh? 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 But I think we should see if Martinez can lock it down. Yeah, they're different players. I do think Martinez gives you a little bit better of size of a center, if you will. Martinez, of course, does the dead ball snap where Turner does the original, snap, which I think is very interesting. Obviously, Blake played college offensive line, and we get in debates over the dead ball snap and the traditional snap all the time. But yeah, see if Martinez can lock it down. Arguably, the guard struggled more than Turner. I'm surprised we're not getting more Alan Risher love in the chat. Where's that Alan Risher love? Arguably, the guard struggled more than Turner. I agree. There were times when the guard position just wasn't great, and that's part of why I want Emery Jones to play one of the guard positions because we get a lot better at either one. I feel if he plays either one. So yeah, he did. I do think some of that was. I do think some of that was him getting a little banged up, and So here's a good way of looking at it. Over the years, a lot of LSU offensive linemen get hurt, right? They play every single snap. They have these abnormally large bodies. You land, you get folded over. And if there's a pile, those things begin to, well, pun intended here, pile up. I just think snaps can get to you really quickly at those guard positions. And he did look a little, tired as the season moved on. When you're playing non-Power 5 ball to SEC ball every week, it's tough. And that's why, missing on some of these higher rated guys because they do have the frame to play Division I football and you can't play them sucks, right? It sucks that you can't put someone else out there. Um, so yeah, I thought there were times physically where we really struggled in the trenches, and I love that this has kind of turned into like a offensive line chatter here. I'm always down for that. Um, so yeah, let's see here. I just got a follow from DJ Pizza. What's up, man? Loving it. Let's see here. Nice. Um, and I wish I could give you a baseball breakdown, Tyler. I wish I was smart enough to break down LSU baseball. Um, but I will probably never attempt to do that here. Like I'll catch a few games like every now and then, but you know, for me, I just can't keep up with it, man. Those games are long, right? So let's see. There's a few other things I want to talk about outside of Jaden Daniels and Garrett Nussmeier, and outside of the offensive line and outside of defense. I want to chat a little bit about the SEC as a whole, right? I don't think the SEC is going to have a quote unquote um, down year per se. I do think, though, there are a lot of SEC teams that will go through some change over this next year. And this could be a good opportunity for LSU to take advantage of that. And we're going to go through a lot of change as well. But honestly, our offense coming back is crazy, right? We're returning what, over 2,400 of our 2,600 rushing yards coming back next year, which is absolutely absurd. And yeah, Blake shared a really good stat earlier about that. It's crazy how much production LSU is returning. Let's go to Rico's super chat here. No. Anytime you super chat, never stop. Right? Huh? That's why it's here, right? I look at this stuff every single day, right? It's what I do. It's not a job. I consider what I do. I'm very fortunate to do what I do. Whatever, but this is what you're doing, right? We're hanging out, and you want a question answered, and that's why you're here. We go straight to it every time you super chat, man. A little QB perspective. JD5's QBR was 77.5. Burrow was 78.4 and 94.9. Okay. So before we continue here, when you go to a QBR, right, there is something called a quarterback rating. But QBR, more often than not, stands for the ESPN QBR, which is a number graded from 0 to 100. And there's a lot of different factors that go into QBR. EPA per play, situational football, the strength of your defense is factored into the score, and also yards, all the typical stuff, right? So let's take a look at QBR. JD5's QBR was 77.5, which is really good, right? Statistically speaking, it is very, very, very good. Burrow was 78.4 and 94.9. If you have a QBR in the 90s, that means you are elite. If you have a QBR in the 80s, that means you're very, very, very good. And obviously, 77.5 is close to that. What a QBR of 50 represents is a replacement level quarterback. Okay. So Danny Etling's QBR was 74.7 and 80.8. Zach Mettenberger was 51.0 and 86.8. Jordan Jefferson was 59.6 and 59.8. Jerry Lee was 43.4. Why is that so low? Well, interceptions and pick sixes obviously really hurt your chances of winning. Matt Flynn was 66.9. Jerry Russ was 63.4 and 82.1. And Randall's last year was 57.6. So first thing is, I didn't know QBR went back that far, which is very cool. I like that. Send me where you got this data. I checked ESPN. I didn't think I saw QBR numbers from way back when. So feel free to send that to me, Rico. The second thing I'll also say is, obviously based on this, Mettenberger's final year was the second best year. Well, Mettenberger, Russell, and Danny Etling. So let's chat a little bit about QBR, right? Turnovers really do hurt your QBR, right? And you look, Danny Etling only had 2 interceptions his final season at LSU, so that helps out. I also think scrambling can help your QBR big time because it is a running play that that oftentimes is something that is successful per a stat, let's say like success rate, and you're not turning the football over, right? If you're choosing to scramble, it also, let's just say a running back or a quarterback decides to tuck and run the football. That also means you're not forcing a ball into coverage as well. So, quarterbacks that run, QBR, I think, helps. So it's very, very interesting. I didn't know this. I did not know that the QBR numbers go all the way back to Marcus Randall. See here. So if JD continues to train, he'll definitely have a better QBR than last year. Okay. So let's put Rico's super chat up again. Really enjoyed this question right here. 77.5 to 78.4 and 94.9, 70.7 to 80.8, 51 to 86, 59 to 58, 43, 66.9, 64 to 82. Yeah, I mean, I would guess you are right here, this old vet. If the trend continues, you will see Jaden take another step forward next year, right? So this then gets into philosophy, right? So I am someone that likes to think I do an okay job of mixing in numbers and mixing in the actual film. Okay. And the issue for me is it's important to factor in both, right? So when I watch Jaden Daniels play quarterback, I do see throws missed. I do. I do pick up on that. I think a lot of you pick up on that. But the good thing is if you miss throws, as long as you don't turn it over at the same time, it still comes off as a mathematically efficient play, but it's not a play that necessarily produces the best result, right? That's why it's very important to actually not only watch the game when it happens, but rewatch the game. That's why, our film studies on PHL, the days after the game are so long because, we're a highlight driven society. We just like to pick one play here, one play there, and put it in a nice, 5-minute clip and you move on to the next game. But that doesn't tell you how a full game actually works, right? You need all of it. You need all the tape. You need to piece it all together and form your own conclusion. And that's why it's very important to take in the film and take in the QBRs and take in EPA per play and success rate and all those things. And that's what I strive to do here on this channel. For me, like, let's just take, to me, who the best quarterback is in the SEC, KJ Jefferson. His numbers are very good, but the film looks way better. It looks freaking amazing when I watch him play. The amount of plays he makes on his own is just truly incredible. He gets the football downfield, and he doesn't have the necessarily best receivers. He's a very good quarterback and a very good system with a very good play caller. So yeah, those two things marry themselves together. Joe's film and obviously his numbers marry themselves together. So it's very interesting. Gordy, what's up, my man? What's up, buddy? ESPN QBR goes back to 2004. Very interesting. So yeah, like let's say KJ Jefferson, 77.9 QBR compared to JD5 77.5, right? So obviously 247 Sports on their list has Jaden as a better quarterback than KJ. I just don't see it that way. I think Jaden obviously is a very solid quarterback. This is the back half of the list. You see KJ Jefferson is also behind Will Rogers. I'm just wondering if we're watching the same games. Like I don't know. I appreciate you, Daniel. Hamburger was not a good quarterback. Who's Hamburger? Is that? I can go for a good burger. Let's see. I'm a bachelor. Oh, y'all. This weekend, all right, I was reminded of why In-N-Out is still the GOAT fast food burger. I'm so glad I don't live in an area with an In-N-Out. I'm so glad. It's fire. Straight fire. For the entire meal being less than $10, it's just unfair how good they are. It just is. Dude, James, it's funny. So I was on this bachelor's party with people that went to Arkansas, right? And they do not think KJ Jefferson is as good as I think he is. And they're like, yeah, I kind of like him. I was like, do you know that roster would have been a 3-win team if KJ Jefferson did not play quarterback for them? A 3-win team. Like LSU for the longest, we would still win a lot of games and not have the absolute most optimal QB plays because we had Leonard Fournette and all those guys, right? Arkansas does not have that. They don't. And they had other good players. Drew Sanders obviously was one of the best players in the country defensively, but man, dude, that was not a good roster. And KJ, dude, he is an animal, man. If he played the game versus us, man, I don't know. I don't know, right? It might have been a different result. And part of that was because Jaden had a historically bad game for his standards, right? No, I didn't. I don't really, and this might burn me. So I actually DJ'd a wedding for an A&M grad, and her sister reached out to me to DJ her wedding. I remember this. One of their requests was to play the Texas A&M fight song. And of course, I did not want to play. You guys know that stuff makes me go, man, that's just, you guys know I can't stay in A&M. I just can't. So I played it. And just quickly after that was done, I did a little dun, 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 dun. I just can't do the A&M fight song. Out of all the fight songs, that one, it's like, dun, dun. I'm not even going to do it. I ain't going to do it. Thank you, Day Day. And the Patrick Peterson Avi from his Cardinals day. Five Guys is not the same that's a different experience, right? I don't know if I consider Five Guys like fast food though. Like fast food is somewhere I there's a drive-through. Plus Five Guys is, I mean, I don't know. I like Five Guys can get a little crazy with, the fries in the bag, which of course isn't a bad thing. But the good thing I like about In-N-Out is not only is it quick, they have this good pink lemonade there, it's also cheap. Like In-N-Out is like super affordable. I haven't gone to Five Guys in years. Isn't Five Guys expensive? I don't know. I don't know. Now, when you talk about something great with affordable rates, I'm just saying, I think about something like super special. Like, of course, like a burger is like what, $10, but there is something that is done that oftentimes people fret about, and it's expensive. There we go. I think this is a first time when. Oh, Rico gotcha. Rico gotcha. I thought TJ got himself one. Okay. I thought TJ got himself one. Oh no. But we have a tie. You got to type the whole thing out. But Tyler did misspell it. Still. So did Rico get the W in Nurse Court? Okay, so we don't have, a fight over who actually won the Pressy Collection contest tonight. Okay? So, this was a big deal for me, obviously. The jewelry business could get very expensive. I'm going to be honest with you. These are some of the Instagram comments that Haley got. These are Facebook. Some of these are Instagram. This is just 4 of many when Haley initially posted it. It is unreal how many times people have stopped Haley to ask about the ring. And it's pretty surreal. Like, hey, I wondered, hey, does this happen a whole lot? So I looked at a bunch of other like engagement posts, and I would never see anyone say, wow, that ring is perfect. The ring. Oh my goodness. And that's why I'm really glad I went with the Pressy Collection and PressyCollection.com. It's not just rings, though. It's everything under the sun. If you want to think of anything jewelry related under the sun, right? Whether it's rings, whether it's earrings, whether it's necklaces or whatever, Pressy Collection is where you want to go. And at least take the call. At least do the one-on-one consultation. It's totally free. And I'm telling you, anything jewelry, anything. You think it, come to me first, and I promise you, we're gonna get you all set up, okay? Oh, LA Mom is delayed. So it depends on how you watch. And I promise I'll get back into LSU stuff. So sometimes, especially if you watch on your phone, it is very important if you touch your phone or anything like that, or if you're dealing with anything on your TV, make sure that the red cursor is all the way over at the bottom of the video. Okay. Also, if it is, you'll see the live button actually light up like red, if that makes sense. So you always want to make sure you are not behind. That's why sometimes in the chat, you'll see people talking about something that happened an hour earlier in the live stream. Okay. So, yeah. All right, D, we'll see you, man. Hit me up. And there you go. Aaron. There you go. I also want to say this before I continue as well. What happened last night to Russell Gage sucked. Now he did tweet out that he's fine, but that crap sucks. Like, it's in garbage time. You're down by 25. I mean, obviously fantasy playoffs and all that stuff is still on the line. But not only did his knee get caught weirdly, his neck, got bent back. I'm glad he tweeted out that he's okay. And like when he was at LSU, he had his final year as many carries as he had catches. And, to have the NFL career, which is way better than what anyone thought it was going to be, I don't know why that was on there, is pretty freaking crazy. So I'm glad he's okay, and I hope he bounces back next season. Okay? There you go, Sherry. There you go. So Skipper's also a winner tonight because he did type it out all together. So Tyler, Skipper, and Rico. But Rico was the first. So there you go. I love it. Aaron. Oh, two more things I want to share really quickly. We'll look it up right now. Okay, so really the only way you can go get it is, you could get it off other sites, but the easier thing to do is just to go to ESPN, and you'll see it right here. So you go to a player's page, and this is Max Johnson's QBRs at LSU, and I'm gonna be honest, they weren't that great. As you can see, this is Texas A&M numbers. So let's go to 2021, and we scroll down here. And as you can see, his final QBR down here was 63.2, which isn't bad per se, but it's also not great. Now, I will say Max didn't have a QBR as low as Jaden's versus Arkansas, but you'll see here that 50 is a replacement level quarterback level play. So, you see UCLA 56.4, which obviously isn't great. But it did get better there for, a while. Mississippi State obviously was a phenomenal performance for him. But you notice outside of that Texas A&M game, ironically, his QBRs were consistently under 70, right? Which is interesting because if you look at these numbers overall, you see a 27 touchdown to 6 interception ratio, but he gave you nothing as a runner. He took a lot of bad sacks. He was very gun shy at times. And the difference is when Jaden decides to not throw the football, he could still give you something with his legs, while Max isn't a statue. He didn't really give you a whole lot of explosiveness with his running. So yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, that was also pretty sad as well. Yeah, I hate it. I hate that the Georgia offensive lineman is that pass, and the recruiting staff are really, really sad stuff. Um, So there you go. Now, one thing and we've talked offensive line, we've talked, John Emery. Will close off the poll question here. Who will lead LSU in rushing? Oh, okay. We'll keep the poll question up because we get a super chat here. There you go. With Blanche, and you are right. You have, stood firm in this belief. I've been a John Emery naysayer, but I have to say his blocking and catching improved, and Frank Wilson will fix the fumbles, I believe. Now, here's the truth about fumbling, right? There's nothing you can really do to coach that out of somebody, right? Ball security just comes down to, well, just not dropping the ball. So, you know, uh, so there you go. So I just got tagged in this story right here. And I'll go ahead and show it to you. Jack Mashburn is done, right? According to Lon Phillips Sullivan here, has left the team on good terms with medical retirement. Mashburn was a member of the 2019 national championship team. Obviously, the game you'll remember him for was the Florida game with Ty Davis Price. Jack will graduate in May. Congratulations to Jack Mashburn, and I wish him nothing but the best in his future endeavors. I know he was a backup tight end, but he's really good blocking tight end for LSU, right? Now, you want to share this tweet right here, okay? This is from Power Hour LSU. If you're on Twitter, make sure you give us a follow. Power Hour LSU on the Twitter.coms. Johnny will return for his 5th season, and you'll see, this is what LSU's depth chart looks like right now. Not in order, but John Emery, Josh Williams, Noah Kane, Armani Goodwin, Caleb Jackson, and Trey Holly coming in. And Nick Demas, of course, is probably still going to be on the roster. Now, Blanche's super chat here. These are John Emery stats from this past season, okay? So, you'll see here, John Emery, of course, in 2019 was mop-up duty. Then in 2021, TDP kind of separated himself, and John Emery had some injury issues. 2021, we had the academics, and that carried over into 2022, and he didn't play until game number 3 versus Mississippi State. And you are correct, Blanche. He did get better. Now, I know if you look at John Emery's numbers here, it looks a little like he was the same player in 2020, but he wasn't, right? In 2020, he had, big games versus Vanderbilt and a bad South Carolina team, which obviously doesn't mean a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. But this year, John Emery did something he hadn't done in years prior, which was playing at an extremely high level when things weren't, going his way, right? He was playing in a situation where he wasn't in mop-up duty or playing against a team you were blowing out. He had the big touchdown versus Alabama. He had the huge touchdown versus Auburn. And, he was good in the middle of the season. He broke a lot of tackles, too, as well. So, for me, I thought John did take a step forward. Is he special? No, he's not a special, like, transcendent player. But, sometimes people use his 5-star rating against him. Historically, you're always going to be known for your recruiting ranking if you are a 5-star. But, not all 5 stars pan out. At the very least, he is a serviceable, good player with some special mixed in there. So, yeah. I agree with you. I thought Frank Wilson objectively made this LSU running back room better. And Jaden gets a lot of credit for that. Obviously, his running ability opens things up for running backs. It just does. But quite literally, I none of these running backs were expected to be as good as they were this year, and they were very good for LSU this year. Um, but yeah, the fumbling does need to get better, right? If you're going to get him to play, the fumbling does need to get better. Now, that's what's very interesting. He could have 2 years of eligibility remaining, which would be absolutely absurd uh, when you really think about it. But yeah, obviously this next year is more likely going to be his last year, and I'm kind of shocked he made the decision to come back. Um, I thought he was going to go, but John Emery also has NIL deals. He has one with Canes. He has one with Gordon. So who knows? He might have said, "Look, if I don't make an NFL team, I won't make any money. If I come back, I'll probably keep my NIL deals and still get paid." Um, if he would have come out though, he obviously would not have been drafted. He would have just been, a training camp hero, hoping to, stay on. So I am very happy he is back. The Carter. PB, what it do? It's all good, Danny. That's what I'm here for you, buddy. Yeah, he's got 2 years. It just depends if that academic year counts against your eligibility or not. I don't think it does. So he does have 2 years. He has 2 years to play too. So there you go. Now, um, I do want to touch on a few things. Okay, what I found to be very interesting was by the end of the year, more. I was talking to myself more into Georgia's scheme being a big reason why they were so good, right? Like defensively, they lost Dan Letting, who had a very good season, at Oregon in his first year as a head coach. But he was always a co-DC with Schumann and Kirby was there. After the super chat right here by John Sibley Butler, um, I want to get into Todd Monken a little bit. Pause. I do want to talk a little bit about Todd Monken and what we can learn from Georgia's run that maybe Mike Dimbrock can learn because those two have some similarities. Okay. Now, let's go to John Sibley. What will be the weakest position room in September and will it have an effect on games? Very good question. And I think there's an obvious answer. I do think it's linebacker at this point. And I don't want to necessarily say it's just weak, but I do want to point out that it's shallow, right? Your best linebacker returning is Greg Penn, and he will get better. He will play better. He played better as the season moved on, which that was pretty clear. I don't know how comfortable I feel though with Greg Penn being the best off-ball linebacker on this team. So I do think linebacker is definitely the answer. There is some good news with that, though. Number one, Greg Penn will get better. Wes Weeks will get better. It's shocking, though, John Sibley, how many players left LSU this offseason when there was a lot of playing time up for grabs, right? So Desmond Little left, okay? Kobe Fields leaves. Xavier Carter leaves. So what that tells me is why would they leave this situation here at LSU, even though they can win the starter's job? Well, I think it's more of them and the coaches saying, hey, we don't think you can be the guy for us at this position next year. So they move on. What that also tells me is LSU has a plan, right? They've got to get some off-ball linebackers in the portal. They just do. Now, I think the second part of this question is more interesting. Will it have an effect on games? And the answer to that is yes, if things do get extreme, right? Um, if you're extremely poor at something, you're going to lose because of it, right? So, like, here's a good example. Let's take 2020 LSU. The scheme was so bad defensively, it cost us games. And because the scheme was so bad, we didn't really have a chance in a lot of spots unless, of course, our offense played great or we got a pick six or whatever. And that is how I feel about the linebackers. If our linebackers play fine next year, even if they're not like Patrick Queen or Devin White level players, we'll be okay. All right. And I think we will be fine. The second thing I'll point out, John Sibley, is yes, an elite off ball linebacker can change your defense. It really can. But you can also argue that it is not of the utmost importance, that position in the hierarchy of defenders, right? Like, of course, there are some players like Roquan Smith and Fred Wagner who get big deals as linebackers and they deserve it. But for the most part, off ball linebacker is, in the minds of many NFL GMs, an interchangeable position. It's not as important to be elite there as it is as, like your defensive line or more importantly, your secondary. So, I think you can get away with not having just transcendent off ball linebacker play. You can get away with that at a lot of different positions, including quarterback, if everything else surrounds you is good. So yeah, as far as like the effect it's going to have on games, it just comes down to how bad things can be. But yes, as far as like other weak position groups, obviously rebuilding in the secondary is going to suck, but we have done a really good job addressing that. And obviously the defensive line should be really solid next year. But who will be the starting jack linebacker? We'll see. Now, what would be the weakest position group on offense? I I honestly don't know. I don't think that there's anywhere on this offense right now that I would consider just to be weak. But I do think every position group needs to improve to a championship level, right? Like Jaden was very good at quarterback. Was he championship level good? I don't think so. Our running backs were very freaking good this year. I think they can get even better. Our offensive line was very good this year. I think they can get even better. And our wide receiver room, obviously, is really talented. Malik very well could be the best wide receiver in the NFL draft next year. I think Marvin Harrison is going to be the first, but he could be the second. He very well could. All those guys need to take a step forward. So, yeah, I mean, linebacker's the only position right now in this team I would consider to be, a huge question mark, but everybody needs to play better. I really do think that. Sherry says we definitely got to hit the portal. I agree with you, Sherry Berry. This is also true. We have been very spoiled at linebacker. DJ believes wit is the truth. Branson, congrats. You're back in class. I get to meet you pretty soon. Pretty excited about that. Um, I agree. He is not the fleetest of foot. I would agree with that. Dev, I love how Dev randomly commented under a Garrett Nussmeier film study. We need Monty Montgomery, very good linebacker out of Louisville, who is in the portal. And look, he rocked a single digit number. If you rock a single digit number, you got to be able to play, right? Can Dallas use our San Francisco kicker? Or could Dallas use Ramos? for their game versus San Francisco. I don't know. 4 extra points. Okay. So I had a tweet. It didn't do like big numbers. I thought it was going to. But did anyone else, when a kicker misses multiple extra points, immediately think of the Oregon State game and Alexis Serna? It is funny. I can't name every LSU kicker that has ever played at LSU. But I'll always remember Alexis Serna of Oregon State missing, 3 extra points in that game, and he went on to be one of the best kickers in the history of the Pac-12 at Oregon State. He won the Lou Groza Award, but he just had one awful game versus us. That is so funny. Jules, what's up? Good to see you. Bill O'Brien out at Alabama. Interesting. Let's see. Wait, is he really out? Is he fired? I know that they lost Golding to Ole Miss. That's very interesting. I don't think he's out yet, Tyler. I think he's still there. I don't think it's official. I know that there's heavy rumors. I don't think that that's out. So let's see. Uh, yeah, I saw that earlier. So Tyler just DM'd me the link. I was one person just trolling. Not who actually shared it on Facebook, but the Twitter account that tweeted it out. Always be careful with that. Like, here's the thing. Anytime an Alabama coach leaves, you're gonna know about it, right? Um, like the Pete Golding thing. Lane Kiffin kind of broke the Pete Golding story when ESPN wrote a story on it and he tweeted it out. I was kind of in this poll. All right, Craig, we'll see you, man. Let's do Carvis. All right. All right, Carvis. There you go. That's my guy, Charlie. It's all no. Hey, I've been duped before too. I have been duped before. I think everybody gets duped, especially if it's something that is confirming your priors. It's easy to get duped. But if Bill O'Brien was no longer the offensive coordinator at LSU, you would have seen Pete Thamel. You would have seen like Ross Dellinger. You would have seen all these guys tweet out Brett McMurphy that Bill O'Brien's gone, right? Because number one, it gives them a lot of retweets, and number two, it's very newsworthy. I don't know. I part of me wants Bill O'Brien to be back because I think a lot of OCs would look great with Bryce freaking Young as your quarterback. According to SEC Shorts, that's right. I like that. That was a good sketch today. I'm not going to say the ending, but the ending was crazy. I was like, "Ooh, that was a deep cut." But yeah, we'll see you. Now, here's what we're gonna do. It is the dead of the off season. For a good portion of this live stream, we were well over 100 viewers. That's still crazy to me. I really appreciate that. I want to obviously get to 200, but over 100 with no breaking news story obviously makes you feel really good that we're doing something together here. Now, here's what we're going to do, though. It's kind of crazy. We do, and it's over 100 for this very long period of time. We've been here together for, 90 minutes, and over 100 of you have been in here for, I think, about at least an hour. I'd have to go look. And what's funny is, like, I'll look at a thing like 3 hours in and we'll still have like 80, 90 people in here. But here's what we're going to do. In the next 5 minutes, I'll answer as many questions as I possibly can. Talk about anything. It doesn't have to be LSU football related. You can ask me about Dylan Cruz. I won't give you a great answer, but I'll give you my absolute best. In the next 5 minutes, I'll answer as many as I can. But if you super chat, I'll do a 3-hour live stream tonight. I'm feeling great. We'll keep it going. Okay. Because I know a lot of you don't like it when it ends. Get so many Discord messages from our patrons. By the way, join the PHO Patreon. And don't forget, we do have PHO merch. I'm going to say it now. You better get your hats while you can. Okay. The PHL hat, send me a message on Instagram or Twitter at Power Hour LSU. I watch till my phone goes dead. I like that. Sawyer, I answered that one a little bit earlier, so you can rewind. Here's what we'll do, though, Sawyer. If you super chat, I'll reveal my answer again, because I do think there's a clear-cut best one. Best rom-com of all time? Let's go to Day Day. So with Howard, do you blame him for leaving, or is the QB room that deep? Obviously with the portal, it's a little bit different. I also think, you need to look at the quarterback position differently than like a defensive lineman, because, if you're good enough to play Division I defensive line, they'll find you. It's simple. They'll be able to see if you're good or not. But the issue is, quarterback, not everybody gets a chance to play. Context is very important at quarterback. Situational football is very important at quarterback. And obviously, if you're not playing and you can't get hit in practice, can't really see anything in practice, we're all kind of guessing. I think that's the scariest thing for Division I programs and the quarterbacks themselves is the Division I coaches who have been the most successful are some of the worst at actually picking the correct quarterback. Okay. So here is a great example of this. Okay. And we go to Buster Super Chat here. But really quickly, Georgia had JT Daniels over Stetson Bennett. Tennessee had Joe Milton over Hendon Hooker. TCU had Chandler Morris over Max Duggan, and so on and so on and so on. Coaches are not good at picking the best quarterback. It's not clear. If it was clear, it'd be a lot easier to do this. So, yeah. John Emery was on the team in 2019. Could he end up winning 2 natties at LSU? So Rico had a very good comment earlier. Rico, one of our sharpest PHLers, that John Emery might actually get to play 2 more seasons at LSU. It just depends on how they're going to count his eligibility for the suspended year. But yeah, I mean, he very well could, and he could do it for the second time as a backup, right? I still think Josh Williams is the guy. I do. In the comment section right now for Buster, who do you believe, okay, will be LSU's best running back next year? Okay, just comment whichever name in there. Yeah, Justin Fields. It's hard. It's really hard to pick the right one. Kirby's arguably the best. Well, I'll say it. He's the best coach in the country right now. He couldn't pick. Josh, no, Kane, Williams, Josh. I think he does. I mean, you have to if you're the walk on, right? Or you have to be one of the best work ethic guys. Um, yeah, you know what's interesting? Can I share a quick story about Josh here? So, I went back and rewatched the Alabama game, and I was charting something for this Jaden deep dive that we're gonna, start releasing pretty soon. And one thing that was crazy about Josh Williams' famous block in overtime, right? So there was two iconic blocks on Jaden's run in overtime, right? There was Brian Thomas Jr. who had this crazy, crazy block, and there was another block, and BTJ's block was on Eli Ricks, but the more difficult block was like Josh Williams. Okay, this one right here. Okay, I've never really just seen a running back flatten a player the caliber of Brian Branch right here. Okay, but there is a what's up, Esteban? Good to see you. There is another story to this block. Okay, so Branch was so good this year for Alabama at safety. Okay, and Josh Williams in the spot pancakes him in the open field. Really hard to do. What's funny was earlier in the game, Josh Williams took one of the biggest hits I've ever seen a running back take in pass protection, where Brian Branch legit chalk outline Josh Williams, right? And I thought Josh was knocked out. It was crazy. And for Josh, to have the game that he had in this game, where he made quite literally three different impressive plays. He had this play, and then he had the 3rd and 7 before the Mason Taylor throw. He had a big run there, and then he also had a nice run where he quite literally threw Will Anderson off of him for like a 4 or 5 yard gain. But what's crazy was earlier in the game, he got killed. I mean, just destroyed by the guy he ended up pancaking here. And that's just a good representation of Josh Williams' career. This is a guy who, is just at the grind. And, he has that famous speech a few weeks ago. Not famous, it's not like huge. But still, it was, phenomenal. He said, um, my last name is walk on or too small, and my first name is walk on, or so it was something like that. I'm obviously butchering it, but it gives you chills. It's a really impressive story. So yeah, I think Josh has kind of moved himself up like one of these guys that all LSU players or all LSU fans just love, man, just a grinder. um so yeah, now I want to include something else here really quickly. Okay, speaking of great speeches, yesterday was kind of a big day, right? MLK. Very blessed to build a very good and diverse community of PHL fans, right? Just wanted to shout out the GOAT, Martin Luther King Jr. Let's go. One guy I think about all the time is like John Lewis, who just like died a few years ago. I think about him a lot. Like this guy like lived so long after that. It's just crazy and was so successful. Yeah, Jared, that's a good question. Like, I think that would be perfect marketing. And obviously, they do a lot with athletes with Drew Brees, Devin White. Um, Uh, oh, I don't know. I mean, they were a one-win roster, but I mean, they're getting a lot of talent. I mean, Travis Hunter is so good at football. It's crazy. Once again, thanks to the great Michael Buster. He and John Sibley have been our top super chatters tonight, along with Jared and a few others. Carvis went to bed. He helped out big time today as well. Uh, Obviously, Blanche is a big supporter of PHL. Love him. So that's good, man. Good question. It's good. I think yards per carry can be a little misleading. But what I'll tell you, Michael, is a more impressive stat is rush yards after contact. Noah Kane and Josh Williams had really high rush yards after contact, which is honestly pretty amazing because neither one of them are physical marvels. They're not the biggest guys, and they are definitely not the fastest guys, but they broke a crap ton of tackles, and that was really, really, really impressive. Oh, do I think what the trouble with the B-ball program is in Alabama, do you think it may affect the other programs there? Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Alabama basketball. I mean, I know they're very good, and I know they had a very sad thing happen, a tragedy involving one of their players who's no longer with the team. Obviously, those kind of stories, especially with like a basketball team where there's just not a whole lot of players, right? You're a close knit group. I don't know. Let me see. Is there something else? Like, obviously, I don't follow when they won tonight. Just a quick Google here. I just don't know. I don't think if it's just that, I don't think I just don't think anything uh I okay, so another player was also charged with giving him the gun. Yeah, I just I don't think it'll have an effect on like obviously Alabama's good at a lot of sports, football being their best, but I think they're what are they're good in like they're not a great baseball program. Like softball is their big one with football. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna have any effect on like football or anything like that. Now, if let's just say there are football players involved with it, obviously that changes, but I don't think it affects anything else. The player situation. Okay, so I guess I just don't know. I just don't know enough about the situation. Uh I guess I just don't. I, Let me just say it's tragic, and someone lost their life, and you know, gun violence is not great. Johnny Five, I just laugh so much every time. I just I just love the smile. I can't wait to actually meet you one day, man. Tell Gail I said hello. Look at this. I just love this. Oh man. We need Johnny Five and a PHL fitted going like this. I know you're waiting for me to make black caps. But I did see something today. One of my favorite football commenters is QB School, JT O'Sullivan. And I saw him. I saw him tweet out that, "What's up, American Patriot? Thank you so much." I saw him tweet out a tweet that said, "Hey, I can't sell hats because it's tough." And I'm going to tell you this right now. We do have a few more hats. So if you do want one, I promise you they're going to be gone soon. Um, I'm not ever doing the hat thing again. I have a tough time, getting through this first one. I remember selling the first. Jared bought the very first hat. I think Rob G was like the second or third hat buy. If you want a hat, get with me now, because I'm like, yeah, we're nearly sold out of them, and it has made us, I've made money doing it, but the time I had to buy a bunch of boxes to ship these hats out, and ended up selling a bunch in person a few weeks ago at our event. So I just want to show you this. American Patriot, the first one is Denver Harris. I think Denver Harris is going to be a really good player. Look at all these boxes. Look at this. It's absurd. And as some of you know, it's like I ship some of the things in like good like Christmas gift boxes. It's hard to find boxes like the perfect size to like ship hats. But yeah. So American Pitcher, I'm gonna give you Denver Harris. He's been my number one up to this point. I'm gonna give you a Chestnut. I think Chestnut's gonna play a lot next year. As far as some of the other portal guys, Aaron Anderson, like he's gonna be the return guy next year, and he's gonna have a chance to play a lot next year. So, I think those three are the first ones that really stick out. And it's going to be competitive for the other defensive linemen to work their way up to get some playing time next year. I have let's see, about like 6 or 7 left still for sale that have not been accounted for. I'm meeting up with some of you pretty soon. So I'll be giving out some in person. So if you want one, get on it now. It's up there. And what's really interesting about that run, Jonathan, is that run came right out of half. So normally when you see those kinds of like long runs where like a guy's breaking like a ton of tackles, it's normally like midway through the fourth quarter or late in the second quarter. This was when Florida's defense was fresh and he broke all those tackles. That was just crazy. American Patriot, another super chat. Y'all better thank him. He's keeping it going, or her. I don't know. I really appreciate this. Can Perk 40 maintain his numbers? It's a really good question because defensive numbers are tough to maintain, right? Sacks are oftentimes the byproduct of who is playing quarterback and the offense you're playing. It's going to be hard, AP, because they are going to be able to scheme. They're going to be able to scheme them up a little bit better. So, if you can scheme guys now that you have more film on them, it changes things. And, a lot of this is going to be also Harold Perkins continuing to work at an extremely high level, which, everyone's talked about his work ethic being one of the best on the teams. If he's not complacent and he gets after it, which I think he will, if he keeps going, his numbers are still going to be very good next year, especially considering there's going to be so many teams with new quarterbacks next year as well. So, yeah, AP, I think Perk's going to continue to be a very, very, very special football player. What if I told you Jeremiah Hughes would have a bigger impact than Denver Harris? What would you say? Hey, I'd be open to it, right? He's a three-star kid coming out of Bishop Gorman High School, obviously. Bishop Gorman's produced a lot of really good three-stars, right? They had a three-star receiver out of Michigan State. His name slips my mind. That's now in the NFL. They had a three-star wide receiver, Cedric Tillman, one of the best receivers in the country over the past couple of years. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, when you play a Bishop Gorman and every day you're going up against Zachariah Branch, who very well could be the best player in all of 2023, the wide receiver who went to USC, those practices are very competitive. But I do think Denver Harris will have a good year next year. I do. So, yeah, let's see. Let's go to Hummus Hero. Oh, we got a Buckeye in here. Lots of people rank at FSU, and everybody welcome our Buckeye buddy. FSU in the top 5 in the early lists. The hype from the win over LSU last season is still carrying them. I think that changes this time around. Nice. I like that, man. I really thought that in Ohio State and LSU, Love would cross over. I love it. And he is also indeed a Denver Harris guy. All right, Jerry. See ya. $1 million smile, baby. Hughes is a corner. So, hey, look, he's an early enrollee. He can. I mean, here's a good thing. There is no guaranteed playing time at corner next year. None. There's not a single player on the roster that is guaranteed to play next year at corner. And that's a beautiful thing. So if Jeremiah Hughes steps up and he's that guy, I will remember Prescia telling me that Jeremiah Hughes is that guy. His wife, his mother, Nikki, UAPB, shout out. She is I follow her on Twitter, and she's very active on Twitter. So yeah, I'm guessing he's just football from this point out. I tell you, I appreciate even obviously the bigger donations. Obviously the bigger donations help me pay rent. As you guys see, I don't have a gazillion sponsors. That will hopefully be changing soon. But a lot of what I do is funded by you guys. So even these like $2 super chats goes a very long way. I know money's tight for everyone. Yeah, whether it's a $2 or a hundo, I really appreciate it, especially people like John Sibley. Every live stream, he's donating $20. It goes a long way for me. Skipper, I'll see you, man. Jonathan says, Carter, do you ever go back and watch old videos of yourself to see how you and your channel have evolved? I binge your first 50 or so of your first videos, and it's crazy how college football has changed. Are you saying that how I talked about the sport has changed, or are you saying my channel has changed, or a little bit of both? What's very funny is like the first video I did was actually done in my parents' basement, ironically. And the very first video on this channel was me talking about how after 2019, I was content with whatever happened after that. Like, that's how happy that made me. Now, I wasn't saying, hey, let's not care about the future or anything like that. Um, but I was just sharing how much that year meant to all of us. And most of the SEC schools and just most of college football, right? Like, think of a program like Oklahoma that has had all this success, all these Heisman winners, and we have won 3 national championships since they won their last one, which is crazy to me. And I'm not saying our program isn't better than Oklahoma. It is. It's just they're very good too. And it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, I appreciate you, Jonathan. We still got a long ways to go, man. We still do. I'm very happy, our numbers are fine right now. But I want to keep going to where this is the best LSU football channel on the planet, right? There's other channels that cover it differently. There's other channels that cover all the LSU sports. That's why, when Tyler, who's one of my favorite viewers, brought up LSU baseball, you guys know I'm never going to fake anything to you. I'm just not. Like, I'm going to talk about stuff that I feel that I could provide, some decent commentary on. And yeah, I know like our numbers are about to, go down because people are interested in baseball and women's basketball, which is great. Men's team, obviously, we got our butts kicked pretty bad recently, but I just I just want to make this the best LSU football channel I possibly can. I was very lucky to have great coaches and and a lot of good mentors helping me get to where I am now. But I've got to be honest. I'm not where I want to be. I want to be the number one LSU football YouTube channel. And that's it. That's all I care about. Now I know I have the SEC football channel that's doing great as well. We just hit 1,000 subscribers, and obviously, I want to be on a national platform next year. That's some of my goals. Doing stuff for a bigger audience would be really cool. But man, this is a dream job. Going on live, knowing that there's going to be 100 people chatting about LSU football. It's heaven for me. It really is. And we got a bunch of fun guests and different things coming up. I still talk to, former players, um, from time to time. And, it's cool getting compliments from guys that actually played the game, know the game way better than I do. That's obviously really cool when you start getting, some of the respect like that. But for me, I just want to do the absolute best I could do, and I appreciate it. You're a big reason why we are where we were. I mean, you gave a lot of money. I'm just being straight up here. I really appreciate that. I'll never forget the best gift I've ever gotten from you as well, Jonathan. I'll never forget that. Ooh, I'm up there with some goats here. So Tiger Bait, um, Buddy Sanji and I used to do radio together. We did. Um, AYS, obviously, Blake's my best buddy, and Power Hour. So obviously, I hated Blake was in a little bit of a fender bender. Once again, when these things happen, I know it sucks. You got to replace a vehicle. I don't have a car, so I know how it sucks. I know how much it sucks to not have wheels, right? And that was a new truck, and I know how hard he worked up to get that vehicle. It sucks, but I'm always happy when a car accident happened and you're still 10 toes down, right? Because, someone mentioned, the Georgia thing that happened. It sucks. Cars are very, very, very dangerous. Like, I was just thinking about driving back from Dallas this past weekend. It's just nuts how crazy people drive, right? Like, one of the biggest things when you go to Dallas are the toll booths, right? And dude, there's people like flying out of these toll booths. I'm like, yeah, there's people walking, trying to make sure everyone's getting through this thing, and people still want to go 50 miles per hour through these things. It's crazy. Oh, you said, I got some crypto. So crypto's going back up, getting some ETH. But AP, I really appreciate you, my brother. Thank you. Petition to have a special stream this offseason where we ask Carter trivia questions from his own takes. That's a good one. You know, it's interesting. Like, so there are some takes that were so bad. Like the Maurice Hampton take was so bad. And I miss that one, right? The Walker Howard take is going to not age well at all, right? That was a little bit more situational than it was like what actually did happen. But I'm telling you right now, I have had some bangers. Obviously, the Errol Perkins Emery Jones thing worked out really well for me this year. Uh, I've had some bangers, okay? But yeah, feel free to do that. Feel free. Now, bangers as far as like predicting things to happen. I thought LSU was going to be an 8-4 team. Thought 8-4, 7-5. And they were better than that. So obviously there are some that you're happy when you get wrong. So yeah. Love to see Carter join T Bob and Matt Moscona. I've never been on Matt Moscona's show. I was, but with fill-in people. I've never been on Scona, which is fine. I know Matt well. When was the last time I don't remember the last time me and him talked. T-Bomb and I are still friends to this day. We used to do a show together. It was so much fun. I miss doing that show with them. T-Bob's the most talented person in LSU media. I'd be the first to tell you that. And he's just a good dude. So I'm very happy for all his success. I really am. And yeah, and we're talking about me doing more stuff on his morning show. I would obviously still be open to that. But yeah, T-Bob and Jacob are just great. It's cool to have two players that are obviously iconic in many different ways to do a morning show. It's cool. I thought we would go 15-0. So TJ, I can't answer this because this was a Patreon question that I asked for only the patrons. By the way, patreon.com/LSU football. If you want to see my latest post on the early enrollees. Early prediction for the most underrated recruit for you in the 2023 class in reference to their current ranking versus the total impact you'll think they'll have on LSU in their career. It's a very good question. There's a few. I do think Kyle Parker's a solid player. What's very interesting for me is LSU, even now, which is still crazy to me, they have yet to have a wide receiver outside of the state of Louisiana have a season where they caught 30 or more passes since Terrence Tolliver in 2010. Now, think of all the great wide receivers LSU has had. They're all from the same state, all of them. In fact, they had wide receivers not go to LSU and win Heisman trophies and still be very high draft picks and have great NFL careers. So, it does beg the question, does LSU ever even need a wide receiver outside of the state of Louisiana? So, Kyle Parker would be the first that would obviously break a long trend of that. I do think he's really good. I do. I also think Caleb Jackson is a very good running back prospect. And I am a little shocked. Let me see what his final recruiting ranking actually was. See his consensus. All right, so this is where he is right now. Okay. So, like, for me, Caleb Jackson would be somebody I would think would have been a top 100 recruit, but he is also, I don't know what this means, athlete verified. It is interesting that none of the services had this guy as a top 100 back. None of them. They all view him about the same way as, one of these middle tier running backs. I do think he's good. I do. Like, I love his size. I love his speed. I love his athleticism. 5'10", 210. Um, I know, is he really 210? He's you know, his weight fluctuated. He thinks I remember in an interview he said he thought it was 215. So even if he's in that 205, 210 range, I think he's really good. I do. Now, you know, how does this actually pan itself out? Um, I have no idea because our best running back this year was a walk on, right? You don't know these things. It's really freaking hard to figure this stuff out. Um, but yeah, I think the world of Caleb Jackson. I really do. Um, so those are two. Kyle Parker, Caleb Jackson are definitely guys I think will be very good players at LSU. Now, defensively, let's pull up all the LSU recruits. Whit Weeks was a very popular guy for the I'll try to figure out what this A means. Athlete network. That's pretty cool. See here. Markway. Yates. Hughes. No one talks a whole lot about Michael Doherty, which is very interesting. Chester, Colin Jackson also like a lot. So yeah, Dylan Carpenter obviously was a late addition. There's a lot of players coming in. Alexander is somebody that a lot of you like a lot. 6'3", 185. He is long. So right now I'm going to give you Caleb Jackson. I feel pretty good about him. I do. I think the interesting thing though, TJ, that makes it tough is he was hurt his senior year. Not sure why, but I have a good feeling about Ashton Stamps as a guy that will stick around for a long time and increase production each year. Very interesting player. Okay, so Ashton Stamps is a guy who never shied away to competition. He went up against in a playoff game, obviously Sheldon Sampson, who's obviously a very, very high level prospect. So yeah, I mean, very, very interesting. I like that. Ashton Stamps also would be a very good recruit for LSU because he's trained by. Let me make sure I get this right. They shouted me out not too long ago. I think it's DTR training in New Orleans. They've trained Devonta Smith. They trained Harold Perkins. What is it? DTR Performance or something like that. In other words, they're really well respected in the industry. Or is it? Let me get this right. Oh, it's DPT, I believe. Yeah, DPT. Robbie Green Jr. Yes, DPT. I'm still recovering from sleep. Or lack thereof over the past weekend. So he trains Tyree Adams, Harold Perkins, Greedy Vance. That's cool. So hopefully Ashton Stamps is next. So interesting. Congrats. Doherty and Yates never get talked about, but are they the only two true safeties we brought in, right? Kylan Jackson. So Jackson has a better grade for me than those two. I think those two could be really good football players. So, and Toviano, I think, will be a safety, but I think they're going to try him at corner at first. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Okay. Huh? Isn't that great? That's why I got to hang around, man. The chill chat comes in here at the end. Yeah, I gotta love it. Deion Smith would have broken that trend, 0 down in my mind. So I know it was a catch versus like Central Michigan, but my goodness gracious, that was one of the craziest games I've seen from a true freshman wide receiver. He he mossed some guys in that game. And what's absurd was his body control. Like, if you ever actually watched him play in those games, his body has very little movement. It seems like he is still, right? And that's always something you want to look for in a player. I know it sounds kind of strange, but what I mean by that is, does he look like he's easy to knock off balance? And he's not. Like, he has great body control. When I see a player not able to keep his feet on the field and things look too fast for him, and I honestly, the most important thing I look for from a player, and it's hard to do this because high school game tape can really fool you with this, is the speed of the game, right? And normally you could tell pretty quickly if a guy feels as if the speed of the game is just too fast for him. With Deion Smith, I did not feel that way. He was a really good football player. With NFL staff getting put together right now, am I scared that anybody will leave? It's funny. I actually blanked out earlier. I was talking about Todd Monken a little bit earlier. I do think we can learn a few things from how Monken ran his offense this year. Obviously, for him to do what he did, he needed the tight ends to do it. And I'm not saying LSU needs to play with more tight ends, but how they used their offensive personnel this year was as brilliant of an offensive scheme I've seen in quite some time. It really was great. Like I really enjoyed watching Georgia's offense play this year. So yeah, I don't think any NFL staff is going to offer Matt House or Mike Dimbrock a coordinator job at the next level. I think House would get some NFL love pretty soon. I don't think it's going to be this cycle. As far as other assistants are concerned, obviously Colorado has taken some of, we took a recruiting analyst, um, also took, our defensive line assistant to Jamar Kane to Colorado. Coach Hill and Coach Phillips are out there now. So yeah, I mean, your staff is always going to get poached. College football coaching and just coaching in general is a very fluid thing. Um, but yeah, I'm not too worried about it at this point. Got a few Toviano commentary. I do think he's more of a safety. But yeah, it's Jalen Brown. I like it. If Jalen Brown pops off, Max Galina is the president of the Jalen Brown fan club. I know you're a Miami fan, so I know this excites you quite a bit, which is obviously pretty cool. So here's what we're going to do. In the next 5 minutes, I'm going to answer as many questions as I possibly can. But we've had a few super chats. It's kept the thing going. So if you want to keep it going, I know TJ wants to do some trivia. Let me know. We'll keep it going. Okay. Poll question is done. Georgia is the new king. Okay. Yeah, you know what's interesting, TJ, is like I like Jalen Brown too. He's obviously got elite speed. I'm not in love with him. Like I think he can be very good. I do. I don't love him as much as some of the other receiver prospects, but I could see the ceiling on him being higher because he's got some Deshaun Jackson in him, right? He has one of the most valuable sets of skills you can have as a receiver, and that is someone that could stretch the field. Uh, so yeah, I mean, he's got some special athleticism. He really does. Jared, I'll go if like I want to do the Arkansas game. I think that would be a fun home game. Obviously, New Orleans made a lot of sense. It was the first game of the Brian Kelly era. It was unique in that it was a Sunday game. We had a very nice venue to do the show from. Um, and I like to go. I've made a few friends in the Florida State media community, so it would be a lot of fun, right? So yeah, should I go? I don't know. If I'm able to get sponsors and stuff like that to, cover some of the big, cost, I'll go. But we'll see. Come on. Let me see something. It's so interesting. Like I was seeing like if Orlando was like drivable. So you would prefer it be at an LSU home game? Um, I know Jared is not an LSU home game guy. I kind of want to do it for like a big thing for a home game. Let's see. I was the first in 2020 to say KB on this channel was going to be better than TM6 when McMath and Coy got snaps over KB. Hopefully, I am right about Jalen. I like it. Now, what I will say, just for clarification here, and I don't this isn't anything that bothers me at all. So there is a Jalen Brown that plays for the Boston Celtics, okay, and he spells his name Jaylen, and Jalen Brown is without a Y, like the more common Jalen, like Jalen Rose, Jalen. It's interesting how many kids named Jalen there are out there right now, because of Jalen Rose. So like after Jalen Rose was popular with the Michigan team, it was crazy. They did a study on it, like how many more kids named Jalen that there are in the country. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Was KB for sure better than TM6? That's tough. Like, I mean, obviously, with the way things ended for both of them, obviously TM6 was phenomenal in his final year, and Kayshawn wasn't. Man, is Kayshawn higher on the totem pole than Marshall? I think he would have been if he never got hurt, because he was the clear-cut alpha on our team. But TM6 was too his final year in 2020. They're close. I think, you know, Kayshawn's peak was higher. I do. But yeah, you know, it's not, there honestly isn't really a gap. Like I think both of them are clearly behind Jefferson and Chase. And yeah, but it is very interesting. But the main point for Max's super chat is he did say that Kayshawn was going to be one of the best players on our team, and he was. So you're right about that, Max. No doubt about it. 8 hours? Ooh. You're still young, though. Oh, man. I prefer to drive than fly, but then again, you know, like I like bringing my stuff. I don't like taking shows off, you know, like. No, I agree with that, Scooby. I do. I would do anything for the early signing period to get changed, and Greg Sankey is open for it as well. There he is. This man's been working hard. I know your schedule's been tough. Thanks for taking out some time. Appreciate that, man. Now, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of something extra. So I went to a card show this past weekend, and I was wanting to buy a Peyton Manning card. I'm a huge Peyton Manning fan, and because I grew up watching the Sheriff, and I just loved him. You know, I didn't care he played for Tennessee or anything like that, and I don't care if his nephew is going to play at Texas. I can care less. This is now. I think this is the biggest card in my collection. It is. Okay. So here's a Peyton Manning and John Elway dual autographed card. And what's very interesting is these are patches that they actually wore in a game. Okay, so on the back of the card, it says it in like small print right here, or a smaller print. On the front of this card are game patches worn by John Elway and Peyton Manning. And I got this for a very good deal. I sold a lot of my cards to get to this level of card. And there you go. Obviously, Peyton Manning is a top 5 quarterback of all time. I think only Brady's better than him in the modern era. So yeah. Dwayne Bowe. So yeah, this card is going to be in my collection for a long, long, long time. And the thing about it though is like Joe Burrow patches. There's so many Joe Burrow patch cards. None of them have game worn uniform in them. So it's tough. So Doug, let's see. I got the photo here somewhere. I need to put my photo with Pierce up here. Where's my photo with Doug Nose? There you are. What's up, Doug? I like it. I know. So 2 Broncos quarterbacks there as well. So yeah, I saw the card at the showcase. It was the final deal, and you know the cards I sold. I actually still had a little room, but yeah, I was very happy to get that card. Pierce, as usual, making some of the best observations. There's a strange domino effect with our run on wide receivers. Chase sitting out, let Marshall shine. Marshall sitting out, let Booty shine. Booty getting hurt prior to the season, let Malik shine. So yeah, that's part of the reason why Jack Besh left, right? Targets are important, and when someone sits out, it allows someone else. Excuse me. Allows someone else. Step up. 13 TDs. It's crazy. Okay. This will always be a stain on Terrace Marshall's legacy. Okay. I'm going to defend him for this. It wasn't a good look because it was reported and it was out there that he lectured to team to play better. Like 2020, of course, was a miserable season, and he then dipped out right after he said that. The locker room was disjointed, right? It was when the Orgeron stuff started to fall apart at the seams, and we were lacking leadership. We had lost Joe Brady. The offense was just not great. His good friend Jamar, sat out. He saw these other guys sit out, and the season wasn't going anywhere, and he was just very frustrated. And he's overall a very quiet guy, and he obviously vocally didn't do what his actions didn't match his words. I'll give him a break in that moment of frustration. I will, because it would be one thing if Terrace was an overall headache throughout his career. He wasn't, or at least I don't think he wasn't. People around the building could probably answer that question better than me. So I mean, I've got to give Terrace a slide. But Max, to your point, it is still not a great look. It wasn't a good look. I mean, I won't defend him actually. What he said, I'm not, belittling it, but you know, I'll give him a little break. It means BTJ is next. What up, Van? Good to see you. Let's go to Van Super Chat. He wants to talk secondary, so we're going to be here for a while. Let's strap in. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. TJ, you can't go. TJ, you can't. Y'all cannot leave. I know we've been going strong for over 2.5 hours now. Okay? You can't leave when Van joins, especially every time he joins, he's dropping a 50 burger. We are not stopping. We are not stopping until we are done talking about the secondary. So, TJ, if you leave, I'm going to demand that look, I actually sent Van one of these as well. I'm going to demand that you send me the number 7 uniform back. TJ, if you leave right now. Okay? There you go. He says he's still here. Van, you're with royalty. TJ. Will the secondary be better next year with more athletes? That's a good question. So there's a lot of things that factor into, a secondary. Okay. As I've evolved as a football content creator, one thing I've noticed is maybe the idea of defenses really moving the needle for teams is a little overstated. And what I mean by that is college football is such an offensive game. Your yard per play number really matters, and your defensive yard per play number isn't as important as your offensive yard per play number. So I do think defense is more predicated on who you're playing than what you actually do defensively, if that makes sense. And the good thing about next year is Alabama might be replacing Bill O'Brien. They got to replace the best quarterback they've had under Saban. Florida, who is their quarterback going to be? We have no clue. Arkansas's offense, they get KJ Jefferson back. We've talked a lot about KJ. They're lacking in the skill guys. See, they get Rocket Sanders back, but their receivers are dog water right now. They're not good. A&M's offense, right? With Petrino back, Connor Wigman back, lots of very talented skill guys back, Evan Stewart. Will their offense be better? I mean, it just depends. Does Jimbo allow Connor to play? Or does he allow Bobby to play the way Bobby wants to play an offense? Then you look at some of these other offenses. Obviously, Auburn's offense is going to get better when you add Hugh Freeze. Mississippi State's offense going to be kind of weird. Not going to be as air raidy next year. We'll see. And then obviously Florida State's offense might be the best that we play next year. So, Van, it's a good question. Will our secondary be better next year? I do think the quarterbacks we play next year won't be as good as the quarterbacks we played this year. We played a murderer's row. So more so just not talking about just the teams that we play. Let's talk about the supporting cast that they have around it. Obviously, we have a lot of holes at linebacker. I think the LSU staff knows. Actually, I feel pretty good about saying this. They want to get a backer out of the portal. I just think that's what they're going to do. So who are the other players going to be? Who is going to provide the pass rush not named Harold Perkins? Obviously, you lose B.J. Ojolari, and, your pass rush has a lot to do with how you defend things on the back end. TJ is my guy. There you go. Not sending that 7 jersey back. Wishbone fixes all. Huh? So now we follow that up with what is the secondary actually going to look like next year? So the good question would be is how you feel about these DBs. So someone had a bold take earlier that Jeremiah Hughes will have a better career than Denver Harris at LSU. I hope you're right because that means he's going to be really good. I think Denver Harris is going to be a good football player for us. I do. Um, so yeah, it would not shock me if he's our best corner next year. Now, who is going to play opposite of him? Well, Chestnut, the Deuce Chestnut out of Syracuse, comes in with a lot of experience. Had a little bit of a rough game last year versus Florida State, but I do think he'll come in and play, right? A lot of the coverage things that they did were kind of similar. We did play a lot of off coverages, and Syracuse rarely played press man. So Chestnut kind of fits in what we're doing. Obviously, J.K. Johnson and Zy Alexander are very athletic marvels. Alexander's a lanky 6'3" guy. Zy Alexander has a lot of playing experience. And J.K. Johnson also experienced from Ohio State with a lot of very unique athleticism, sub 11 100-meter guy. I can easily see him getting a lot of nickel snaps next year, so we will see what happens. I will say the Ohio State fan base kind of felt that a little bit and lets me know that we might have gotten somebody good. And this is one of those rare transfers where it kind of makes sense that a guy is leaving because sometimes when you take a transfer from another school, it's because that player is just not good enough to play at their current school. This is a situation where you're going from Ohio State to LSU, and the reason why you left is so you could play with your high school coach, right? So Zy Alexander, or not, J.K. Johnson played for Steeples at DeSmet High School. So, yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about these transfers coming in. Now, what does LSU do at safety? Well, we know it's going to be a mix of Major Burns and Greg Brooks there. Now, does Greg Brooks play the nickel starting things off? I think that he does. And Major Burns will start at one of the safety positions. Now, who will start at the other? Obviously, Toviano coming in with a lot of hype. Will get some early playing time there, I think. Colin Jackson as well. But there are a lot of different names that can go in. Now, will the secondary as a whole be better? That also gets tough because offenses now have a year of film of Matt House. They're going to be able to attack him a little bit better than what they did this year. Also, how good was LSU's defense this year? Well, obviously, we ended on a sour note with what happened versus Mississippi State, or excuse me, what happened versus Texas A&M and what happened versus Georgia. Now, earlier in the year, we had a few rough defensive games. Obviously, the Florida game could have been better, and Tennessee destroyed us. But we also had some really dominant outings as well. So it is going to be very interesting to see how exactly we actually line all of that up. It is harder as a defensive coordinator as teams begin to get more film on you, and we'll see what Matt House is able to do this year. Evan Banks is very interesting. Um, so yeah, hopefully I answer your question. Okay, Van. I think obviously you and I privately talked about this as well. I'll bring it to the public. Um, LSU's also just gotten unlucky with a lot of these recruits not panning out, right? Like, you know, if you get a top 50 safety like Derek Davis Jr., you're feeling pretty good about life. Didn't work out. Mo Hampton, as I mentioned earlier, didn't work out. Todd Harris had a ton of injuries. There's a lot of different guys that just did not pan out. And obviously, Jordan Tolles was one of those guys as well. These guys were high level recruits and they didn't pan out. You never know with these things. You just know. Okay. And now we get to the most interesting player of them all. All right. Sage Ryan. Okay. 5-star player entering year 3 in his career. Okay. Now, one way to judge a player is how consistent are you? The second way you could judge a player is what did he do that was exceptional during his career that made you go, wow, this guy is special. And look, and like I mentioned earlier, Max, I've had some bad takes. That was one of them. I will never. I'm not one of those guys like these sports gambling experts that only show you your winners. I will happily show my L's. I will. Sage Ryan. I can't think of one like truly spectacular play he's made where I went, wow, this guy is like Grant Delpit, as Doug points out. He's still good though. Like, I mean, he's serviceable, uh, but he's not been a 5-star level player. Okay, so let's talk about Sage Ryan's career. So he's a 2020 recruit, and it was like the opposite of like Mason Smith this year. He only played a few games, right? Like, or excuse me, it was like Mason Smith this year. We didn't really get to see Sage Ryan play all that much. And, he had a really good game in Florida in 2020, and then he had a rough one versus Ole Miss. Well, we play man coverage every snap, and that is the worst position to play, slot corner, if they know what you're doing every snap, right? So then this year, we all thought he was going to take a huge step forward, and it was a mixed bag, right? He had the big play versus Micah Pittman in Florida State on a 4th and goal that I thought was really good. But yeah, I think a lot of you were very frustrated with the A&M game. I think those are just really good catches by Moose Muhammad. But you just don't see Sage making a whole lot of plays, and it's hard. I mean, slot corner is a really hard position, but he is going into year 3. We know athleticism is not the issue with him. He is an elite athlete. Um, but hopefully we see that burst. Hopefully we see that playmaking ability. And I also think, as a blitzer, he could be used a little bit better as well. So we'll see. Yeah, the forced fumble versus Alabama was Sage. So yes, that would be his biggest play at this point. But I still have hope for Sage Ryan. I do. Like, I get an unusual amount of messages about him. I still think he could be very good. I mean, obviously athletically, he is still really, really, really solid. So I think for me, we'll see. Welsh and Harris are the next great one. We haven't talked a whole lot about Terrace Welsh. Um, See how he does. We'll see how he does. Let's do that. There we go. Poll questions up for Van. I hope it works out for him. This kid has played through a lot of injuries. Oh, that's interesting. Steven Gerrard. Huh? Huh? That's funny. Yeah. So, yeah, I was going to say this for a different topic for a different day, but this obviously changes with the transfer portal. But normally, a good sign of a championship team is how good was your recruiting class 2 years prior to that season. Okay. And you normally need to hit on a lot of these guys, right? And something else that's very interesting from this from TJ is you notice like Jack Besh was in that class as well. So I mean, a lot of those guys have left. Mason Smith, obviously a big hit. Sage Ryan, a very solid player. Derek Davis Jr., Deion Smith, Chris Hilton, Nuss, BTJ. Only two of those guys are locked in starters. Yeah, I mean, you would like the hit rate to be a little bit higher. Obviously, Deion Smith, there's nothing you can really do about that. Um, but yeah, so these guys just did not pan out. They just didn't. Lots of talent battling for those starting positions. Yeah, better believe it. I like it. Doug is holding down for Central Louisiana. Welsh is a freaking monster, and nobody really talks about it. If he is 100% healthy, it's going to be scary. I love it. I hope you're right, Nan. I love Greg Brooks for what he's done and some of the plays he's made. Obviously, the Auburn play is, man, that's one of the best plays I've ever seen. I'm being serious. I'll show you my haircut. Look at that. I was rocking the PHL hat, though. Let's go backwards hat. Tom Brady press conference. Does he get taken out of the run sometimes? Yeah, there were a few, hiccups by Greg Brooks, right? He got beat by Mingo versus Ole Miss, and they missed that shot, which was huge. And then, I think on the very next play, Jackson Dart took a hit from playing Roy, and he wasn't the same the rest of the game. I don't know what it is when you put your hat on backwards with a fresh cut. So, like this right here, I look cool. I look like hip or whatever, but I still kind of look old. When you go backwards hat like this, man, I look young. I look hip. I look crazy. I look like I'm getting ready to sell you some Pokemon cards. I look like I'm getting ready to give you a quote to power wash your front driveway. Like I just look young, man. Let me tell you about solar panels young. Have you seen those guys? Have you seen them? The solar panel guys, they're trying to sell you some stuff. They're trying to sell you some stuff. But yes, Greg Brooks was a very good player for us this year. And I'll tell you this, Arkansas fans missed him. Tom Brady becomes Drew Brees this season. Oh, he became Drew Brees this season. You know what's funny about this Golden Boot Pod? So today, for my NFL show that I do, which is a football card show. I actually got kind of into it with my co-host, who's a Tampa Bay fan, and we had a long discussion about Tom Brady because when a player retires, their cards go down, right? What's very interesting about Tom is I actually thought he was fine this year. I really do. Like he threw the ball 66 times and he missed some wide open throws. But man, that coaching situation was not good. I mean, the NFC South this year was one of the worst divisions in the history of the sport. And it was horribly coached and a lot of the rosters were old. And it was just bad. It was really, really, really bad. And I don't think Tom was just like horrible this year. But yeah, I think he plays one more year. I do. I do. Do I think he lost a little bit off his fastball? Yeah, but I still think Brady could play another year and be better than what he was this year. I do. Banks and Ryan at safety. I don't think Seven Banks is going to play safety. He would play corner. I have no clue, Pierce. I would doubt he would have much of a NFL draft market. He's like really watered down Trevon Diggs, right? He's either going to get beat really badly or he's going to get you a pick. There's no in between. Hey, Doug, I hope you feel better, man. Well, Terrence Welsh has a little bit of a fan base on here. I like that. I really do. So Van's poll question is up. Sage Ryan will start next season. 59% of you say true. Yeah, TJ. So this is a good question. I'm actually debating starting a Facebook page, right? Older people like Facebook, they just do. And like I see some of these other LSU channels that are really good, but they also have, big followings on Facebook. I am very reluctant to do like Facebook meta kind of stuff. And I love Facebook. I get a lot of work off of Facebook, whether it be DJing or when I used to do comedy. I got a lot of comedy stuff done over Facebook and just, general conversation, wedding stuff. I have nothing against Facebook. I just like the camaraderie via the YouTube stuff. Discord is obviously a lot of fun. I think it's easy. It's just, chatting, right? And that is, just for Patreon people, right? So yeah, I think I'm thinking about, starting a Facebook page and doing some stuff on there, which would just essentially be, this show, but also being streamed on Facebook. And a lot of people just don't get YouTube. They just don't. And it's essentially the same thing, but it's just videos, right? It's not like, hey, look, Sally gained 50 points on this Animal Farm game, or it's not, hey, here's a video of me and someone updating the death of their stepmother's next door neighbor who was, 83. Yeah, I like the fact that YouTube is just videos. If you don't like this video, go somewhere else. Facebook is, hey, here's some compelling LSU football stuff. And next, here is a Ponzi scheme involving teas and detergent and spices or whatever the next thing is. Right. it's out there, okay? But yeah, get on talk. I got to start talking. I love TikTok. I do. Like the talent on TikTok is so crazy good. I'm not like big college football stuff, but like some of the other stuff, like magicians on TikTok, power washers on TikTok, truckers on TikTok. I could watch that stuff all day. Go Flames. Are you talking about Calgary or Liberty? Burns? Are you talking about Major Burns or Mr. Burns? Deep cut. Arkansas. I don't think he's leaving for TCU. No. Calgary. Did they win? I have no idea. Oh, that was a strong punch. I don't drink when I'm on here. I used to. But I put way too much punch mix in this. Now, here's something else I'll show you. I want to show you guys this really quickly. Jacob, don't go to sleep yet, man. We're still cooking. Max super chat with the way Arkansas wastes KJ Allen. Do you think Pittman is a good coach? He's always been a slightly refined Orgeron to me. They are quite literally the same coach. Like, I mean, they really are. Like, former lineman coach who has very close ties to where they're currently coaching, and they both view where they are as their dream job, but they've never been a coordinator. Big time quirky personalities. So yeah, I mean, they are very, very, very good. But Sam's a really good coach. It's just, when you're not a coordinator, you always have to deal with, can Nebraska leave? What are we going to look like? What is Barry Odom going to do? Honestly, Max, like, I know this is I'm going to get accused of this again. I am just such a KJ Jefferson fanboy. It's hard to evaluate how good of a coach you have when that guy alone wins you so many games. But yeah, it's crazy. Like, I remember I did a video when they made the announcement that Sam Pittman was going to be the guy. And I did it was like video like number 10 or something like that, where I was like, Arkansas is copying the playbook from LSU, get a line coach or whatever. And what's interesting, Max, now that you mention this, after the LSU 2019 Arkansas game, I actually did a TV hit for some CBS local news station affiliates. I rarely do these like local TV kind of things. I love them. I really do. I love local television. I think it's all great. Those people have really hard jobs. So I was doing one for a station in North Louisiana, and the guy was interviewing me. And we're going to get to this in just a second, TJ. And I said Sam Pittman's going to be their next coach. I knew Lane Kiffin was interested. And I was like, Sam Pittman's going to be their guy, or I think they should go in that direction, and it's worked out for them. A lot of Arkansas fans are done with him, and I think some of it is him changing agents. He had an agent from Little Rock, which is, the capital of Arkansas, and then he fired that agency and went to Jimmy Sexton, and Arkansas doubled his salary. And now that he's making more money, people want to see more wins, and this year wasn't that good for them. So we'll see. What does that mean? Facebook is weird because everybody can see you ranting. Okay. So TJ wants me to do picks against the spread. Okay. So I'm going to tell you this, TJ, for as far as like NFL playoff picks are concerned, I placed 2 NFL bets this weekend. Okay. Jordan says, hit the like button. Tell you the super chats are starting to fly. We're 3 hours into this. I love it. So Jordan, you get to pick the next topic. Go right on ahead. Now, I'll tell you this, TJ. I made 2 plays this weekend during actually, I made 3. I had Jacksonville plus 2.5. I had the over. My biggest play this weekend was the over with the Vikings and the Giants. That was just blatantly obvious. Those defenses are not that great. And that cleared. But my favorite play of the weekend was Cowboys -2 versus the Buccaneers. I just thought that was so blatantly obvious that Tampa did not deserve to be there. They were the first team, I think, to ever win a division with a negative point differential. They had the worst point differential in the NFC South. So yeah, they were a historically bad team, and the NFC South was the worst division in the history of the NFL. I don't think there's any debating that. We were the worst coaches. The quarterback play wasn't great. It was bad. And the Saints missed a golden opportunity with a wounded duck division, but Dennis Allen happened. So there you go. Now, I picked really well this weekend. So this means this next weekend, I am going to suck. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. Now, obviously, I am not a Vegas expert. I'm not analytics capper. I'm not Jimmy the Greek or anyone like that, or Steve Fezzik. But I do love sports betting and understanding hold percentage and all of that. And everything I'm about to say is not gambling advice and blah, 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 blah. So let's go through all these games. I could pull up the point spreads and make it a little bit easier. All right. Put up right here. All right. Once again, I know this is an NFL channel. Someone super chatted, and it is later. I do an NFL show each and every week. Football Card Quest. We're growing. So there you go. So here are all the point spreads for the weekend via the score. Right now, we'll start with the earliest game on Saturday. The Jaguars, 53.5 over under, and the 8.5 with Kansas City. So take a look at this Jacksonville team. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence has been the big story here. Obviously, defensively, they're fine. I think one low-key story that LSU fans haven't spent enough time on is how good Arden Key has been as an NFL player. Now, he's not been special. He's not going to go in the Hall of Fame. He'll probably never make a Pro Bowl. Arden Key has been a really good player for Jacksonville for a low-key LSU cut, and Chason has been mostly a disappointment. I love Kayvon Chason, but coming out, I did not think it was worthy of a first-round pick, and I hope things do come together for him pretty soon. But, obviously a lot of LSU flavor there with the Jaguars. I like Kansas City swallowing the 8.5 year. Look, Mahomes is going to be very motivated. You take a look at the AFC Championship game last year where he played probably the worst half of football I've ever seen him play. and he still missed Travis Kelce for the game-winning touchdown. So even as bad as he played, he still had an opportunity to win that game, and he had his best receiver or his favorite receiver open, and he missed him, and he ran around, and obviously the Bengals won the game. So I think Mahomes is going to come out and just light him up. I don't know if I love the over per se. I could see Jacksonville laying a stinker here. Take a look at the teams that they've played over the past 2 weeks. Joe Lombardi, probably the worst offensive coordinator in the playoffs, not named. Um, Byron Leftwich was a disaster for the Chargers. The Chargers did more to lose that game than win it. Same thing from the week before. Jacksonville, these are back-to-back home games that they've won. They beat a team with Joshua Dobbs, right? Joshua freaking Dobbs, and they were lucky to win it. Trevor Lawrence has played more bad quarters than good quarters over the past 8 quarters. And because of that, I think Kansas City will roll. I actually do like Kansas City in like a 28-10, 31-10 kind of game. I can easily see Jacksonville's defense, or excuse me, offense laying another stinker because they have mostly been bad. Okay. That's what Golden Boot says. I parlay Bills, 49ers, and Bengals. Kadri. Not named Pete Carmichael. Yeah, Pete's not that great either. It's tough to be an offensive coordinator in the NFL. It's kind of crazy that both Pete Carmichael and Sean Payton, or Pete Carmichael and Joe Lombardi are Sean Payton proteges, and they're terrible. But who dat? Now, that's more to say with how good Sean Payton was. A lot of Belichick's disciples aren't good coaches either. So let's move on to the next game here. Eagles 7.5 versus the Giants. This is another case where one team's roster is just clearly better than the other. I think Brian Daboll, if there was a draft of the best coaches in the NFL, if I had to pick a coach to lead my team for the next 5 years, Brian Daboll would be my second pick behind only Kyle Shanahan. And I've long held this position that the Bills should have fired Sean McDermott and kept Brian Daboll. The Bills are still great, and they very well could win the Super Bowl. And I think Sean McDermott is a really good coach. But Brian Daboll is a very innovative offensive mind. I think, as great as Sark was, and Sark was probably Bama's best offensive coordinator, Daboll was really special during his time at Alabama. And he was very special with the Giants. And I don't think he gets enough credit for helping Josh Allen turn him into what he is right now. So Daboll's coached his team pretty well. But you look at the Eagles, top to bottom, name a position where the Giants are better than the Eagles outside of running back. Giants offensive line's fine. Eagles offensive line elite. Giants tight ends fine. Eagles tight end elite. Giants wide receivers fine. Eagles wide receivers elite. Eagles defensive line elite. Giants defensive line is fine. Giants linebackers versus Eagles linebackers probably about the same. And then the Eagles secondary is better than the Giants secondary, in my humble opinion. This is not a great Giants roster, and I think because of that, I'm a little bit higher than most on Jalen Hurts. I do think he's really good. And, I like the 7.5 here. I also know the Eagles have been clunky offensively in their last 2 outings, obviously versus the Saints with the backup, Gardner Minshew and Jalen Hurts. This last game of the year versus the Giants. So there is familiarity here. This is a rematch. I do think the Eagles will be able to move the football and dominate this game. And I actually do like the over here as well. So give me Philly to also cover the spread. Okay. Now, let's keep it moving here. It's kind of weird their logos are off. So I know this is screwing with some people. Yeah, they didn't. The logos are just way off. We'll keep it moving here. Okay. So Bengals and Bills here. Bills 4.5. I'm going to go with Joe Burrow here. The Bengals obviously have the worst offensive line in the league in its current state. The good news is the Bills do not have Von Miller. So I do think Joe's going to be able to move the football some in this game. Jamar Chase has yet to have a bad playoff game. So I think, it's going to be very interesting to see Jamar Chase going up against Tre'Davious White. Should be a deadly matchup there. Two LSU legends. I do like Buffalo to cover here. I do like the Bengals to cover here. I think this game is going to be very close. Obviously, a very emotional game as well. I also think Cincinnati's going to be motivated because there is so much more pressure on the Bills to win this game. They're already starting to sell tickets for the AFC Championship game between the Bills and the Chiefs. Now, the reason why they're doing it is because, it's a neutral site game in Atlanta. But I think Cincinnati's going to be motivated because they feel like they were screwed in that this game was not a neutral site game. This should have been a neutral site game because if the Bengals would have won this game versus the Buffalo Bills, they would have been the 2 seed and having the home field advantage here. So I think Cincy feels disrespected in that, they're already expecting this to be Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship game. So because of that, not only give me the Bengals to cover, give me the Bengals to win outright. I do think the Bills overall had the better roster. They clearly had the better offensive line. That's not really saying much, but I like McDermott better than Zach Taylor, and because of that, I'm a little worried about this, but I am going to go Joe getting the job done. Even though it would be nice to see Trey White get the opportunity to play versus the Chiefs because he didn't get the opportunity to play last year because he was hurt. And now we get to 49ers Cowboys. This is also a game where I like the underdog. I do think Dallas keeps this game competitive, and I do like the 3.5 number here. I don't love the over-under. I don't have a over-under play that I just love as much as I love Giants and Vikings last week, but I am going to go Dallas, covering the 3.5 here versus San Francisco. At some point, Brock Purdy is going to level out. And, I just don't think he's going to continue to play at the level he's playing right now. Obviously, it was very interesting to see Brock Purdy and Dak Prescott both play their absolute best games of their seasons in the playoffs last week. So, it's going to be interesting. I am going to go. I am going to go Cowboys covering the 3.5. Not in love with it. I do like San Francisco's roster, but I think I'm going to go Cowboys 3.5 here. I do think it would be very interesting, though, if San Francisco wins the Super Bowl. They've been one of the best run franchises, and it's just amazing how many years San Francisco over the past decade. Their Super Bowl run with Kaepernick, they had one of the best rosters. Super Bowl run versus, the Chiefs with Garoppolo, one of the best rosters. And now one of the best roster in the NFL, I feel, is the 49ers from top to bottom. I think Dallas is not that far off, though, from top to bottom roster talent themselves with the 49ers. So I am going to go Dallas covering the 3.5 there. So there you go. Once again, I like Kansas City covering. I like Eagles covering. And I think the Sunday games will be the more competitive games. Really excited, though, to see all that. I really am. TJ, let me know if that answered your question. I try my best. I'm obviously not close to NFL knowledge as I feel with college football knowledge. What's up, man? Very happy birthday, man. You just turned the big 3-0. That's one of my high school buddies here. LG, what's up, man? Obviously your brother was one of my teammates. Your brother is the reason why my finger is fat right here. I know it sounds weird. Pause. Do I think that they'll ever go away with preseason rankings? That's a good question. One final thing here about the NFL, okay? And my fancy camera just died, so let's get this camera done. I do think one thing the NFL did to screw, they screwed the Saints a few years ago with this. I don't like the 7 teams in the playoffs. I just don't. I think that's horse crap. I really do. 6 was a perfect amount. But, we had a third rematch in 2-7 games. One was a blowout, and then the other was close. I just don't think a 2 and I just don't believe in the 7th playoff team. Go look at the 7th playoff teams. Most of them have just been bad. Honestly, just been bad teams. Now, this year, both of the 7 teams are actually what I would consider to be decent teams. But, man, I don't like it that you can lose 4 games in a row and still make the playoffs. I just don't like that. But Pegasus, they should do it in basketball and football. What's up, Lee on the visual? Hope you subscribe. Everybody, welcome Lee on the visual to the channel. Y'all think Nuss has any chance of beating out J85? Me personally, I'm fine with both of them. They're studs. I know BK says Jaden will be the starter, but still, yeah, I think there is a small chance, but Jaden is going to be your starter versus Florida State. But the good thing about Gary Nussmeier, I've never talked to him personally, but I keep hearing he's stubborn. He's one of these guys that is very competitive, and he's going to give it all he can to actually win this job. And I love that. I mean, he has proved the naysayers wrong quite a bit, and I love that. But Lee, hope you come to more live chats. I do. Turn it over the football. Can't do that. All right, guys. We went way longer than I thought. Special thanks to Van Lathan for the very nice super chat a minute ago to keep it going. I think if I did get another super chat, I'll keep it going, but I am worn out. Sage Ryan will start next season for Van. Poll question has been answered. 61% says true. There you go, Jason. Look at that. That's the best photo ever. Look at that PHL hat. Look at that smile. Look at that. That's good. Now, 3+ hours, just like the Titanic, just like Godfather 1. There you go. Now, don't forget, you can get your PHO merch. I actually got this out tonight. This is one of my, it's a simple card. It's not like a fancy schmancy card. But once again, if you want a PHO hat, better get them now. We're almost sold out. But tonight, if I wake up in the morning and one of you has purchased at least $60 worth of merch, I am going to send you a card that I've always kept close to me when I do live streams. This Joe Burrow Score rookie card. I love this photo right here. Very good stuff. I believe this is actually from I think this is a 2019 pose. I don't know. But still, $60 worth of merch. I'm sending you a Joe Burrow card that has always sat close to me. Okay? It is Power Hour LSU. Bam! And tonight, it's Shaquille O'Neal barbecue chicken. Let's go.